Hashtag piss gang. Hello. Piss gang. Where you at? It's me, Thought Slime. I'm doing the thing that is the only thing people like when I do, which is when I make fun of libertarians. Nothing I do is more popular than dunking on ANCAPs and libertarians. Libertarians, which is a stolen word. That'll be relevant later. Welcome to my stream. It's called the stream because we're hashtag pissgang. Lance has rejected it. Lance has rejected the term, and it belongs to us now. But you should still definitely refer to yourself as hashtag pissgang in Lance's chat. Zotz is here. Zotz, you gonna be streaming later? No reason I'm asking. No reason. I'm the Michael Jordan of dunking on ANCAPs. I would love to see Michael Jordan do that. What's in the mug? It's green tea. The most communist beverage. Because they don't make a red tea. They actually do. But I've never had it. Maybe I have. I don't know. I've had a lot of kinds of tea in my life. Is there some mistake that made me a mod? No, I just see you around. I'm like, there's a mod if I ever saw one. You don't have to do anything. Don't worry about it. But I thought, why not? You know? I can unmod you if you don't want to be a mod. That's fine. What does my mug look like? Get ready. Bottoms up. And it's a bunch of butts. And in case you were curious, bottoms up is actually written on it twice. There's a wide variety of body types on the mug, which I appreciate. Yes, I am. We're talking about the repression of the General Strike in Colombia by Ivan Duke. No relation. And then judging Western doomsday preppers. That sounds awesome. Very in line with this stream. Well, at least the second part anyway. Where was this week's Scaredy Cats video? Oh, you didn't see it? You didn't see it? It's a ghost. Only the wise can see this week's Scaredy Cats video. Only very wise people. Why are they sitting on a fence? They're not. They're putting their butt over the fence. Cheekily. Nice butt mug. Thank you. We got 666 viewers on YouTube. That's an omen. So, I found some fun new libertarian content that I think you're all going to enjoy. And by found, I mean someone sent me most of it. You will not repeat, damn son, where'd you find this? With a DJ host voice? I will. You don't want me to repeat it? Is this reverse psychology and you desperately want me to repeat it? I don't understand. So yeah, let's halt the music. In relation to my voice, how loud was the music for you? Just do the BNL part? The Bare Naked Ladies part? What? BNL part of what? Was not that loud. All right, then we should be good with the Vibio. Ladies and gentlemen, here's a little money for surviving the capitalism dystopia. I am thriving. Capitalism will not defeat me. Unless it tries harder, and then it might. I don't know. We'll see. Hey, don't play yet. Everyone, now You might recall several years ago, one of my first videos, in fact, literally my second video, was why ANCAPs are not anarchists. Damn it, my reverse psychology trick didn't work. I'll get you next time, Stinky Matt. I mean, I'll just say it for you. You can just ask me to say things for money and I'll do it. What was it? Damn, son, where'd you find that? That's a record scratch to be a DJ. Inject this curse content in my veins. Listen, we gotta be careful because this is pure unregulated libertarian shit. Okay, there's no regulations on this. There could be anything in there. Their Soylent is all full of cadmium. I don't know what these videos are full of. You don't want this in your veins. So here's the thing. You might recall I made this video. ANCAPs are not anarchists, right? It was the most basic bare bones type of. It was an easy point to make, right? And I didn't even really mean it to be mean to ANCAPs, although I do enjoy being mean to ANCAPs. I like to bully them. I like to cyberbully them. They don't agree. And today we're going to watch a 1 hour podcast from a libertarian YouTube channel called Yes, Anarcho-Capitalists Are Anarchists. And let's hear their logic on that one. I'm excited to hear their salient points that I'm sure will not just be wishing it were so. This is a YouTube channel I had never heard of before called Springtime of Nations, which I don't know if it's an intentional reference to springtime for Hitler, but I don't know. I don't know what's going on. It could be anything. Just, I don't feel like if you're an anarcho-capitalist, it probably shouldn't be nations. Thank you so much for that super chat, Synonomina. Let's hear what they have to say, though. Let's hear them out, because we could just, maybe we're going to change our minds when we listen to this. Don't you think? It's possible, right? Like, let's keep an open mind, because I'm sure everything this person's about to say is just like so cool. I hope you're ready.
Socialists talk about anarcho-capitalism. You've probably noticed they're very insistent that it is not a form of anarchism. Often they'll even refuse to write the word without quotation marks on the anarcho part. Their argument is
I didn't do that, you'll notice. I wrote quotation marks around libertarian, but I left anarcho-capitalism just as it is. So, okay, so just, I love that stunning logic there. It's not, anarchists don't support a forced collectivization of private property. We support stopping the forced exclusion of private property. Like, we support there not being violence to defend private property. If you take that away, it naturally becomes the common. There's no sound? What do you mean there's no sound? Is it just very quiet, or?
They're very insistent that it is not a form of anarchism. Often they'll
Hold on.
refuse to write the word without
I will fix this.
quotation marks on the anarcho part. Their argument is that anarchism
How about
is
now?
historically referred to an ideology which advocates forcible collectivization or redistribution of private
Still quiet. There can be more. I can do more gain. Beep it up, boop boop.
property, and which treats the traditionally organized private business as equivalent to or even worse than the state. So, are they correct in this claim? Spoiler alert, no. After a time...
Still louder, huh? Still louder. Okay. Let's get louder with Crowder. Folks, get ready.
Ton of research, I've put together a fairly comprehensive explanation of why that is. So sit back, settle in, and enjoy. This is Byron with Springtime of Nations, and today, the history of anarchism. Okay, so before
It's in the range of acceptable. Let's get it a little bit louder. I can't go much louder than this. I'll be arrested.
get into this, I have to point out that any question that can be formulated as is X Y is dependent on the definitions of X and Y, which are not objective facts. Language.
Well, then, goodbye video. That's, how could you possibly, how can you make an argument then?
Language is just a tool to communicate, and the word anarchism is just a sound that I'm making with my monkey mouth right now to communicate some idea to you other monkeys watching this. If I told you that by anarchist I meant someone who watches Neon Genesis Evangelion, then it may be prudent for you to just accept that and use a different word for the political ideology,
What?
at least in the context of that particular conversation. A rose by any other name would smell as sweet. The ideas of anarcho-capitalism...
So then why bother even discussing it? Why bother then? It sounds like what this person is saying is just like, well, when I say it, it means this. Therefore, that's what the word means. And words can mean different things to different people. You claimed you did all this research. This video goes on for an hour. I assume you did a bunch of research. Why then does it matter that words mean different things to different people? How can you...
do not become any more or less just or correct based on whether you label them as anarchism or not. So, I guess we've solved this one. Video over. Thanks for watching. Just kidding. Well, the word itself...
He got me there. I was on the edge of my seat. I was like, what? The video's over? Classic bait and switch.
Is a matter of semantics. There are certainly actual disagreements of fact about the history that surrounds it. If you ask the average anarcho-communist about this, they'll act like what happened was that anarchism was collectivist from its inception, and everyone agreed with this until the 1950s, when Murray Rothbard randomly started calling himself an anarchist. As I'm going to explain in this video, that is not in fact what happened at all. As we go through the history, it's also going to become...
So, I don't know if there was, an anarchist out there that, someone who referred to themselves as an anarchist in history that had the same type of ideas as Murray Rothbard before Murray Rothbard, but I think it's fair to say that the term consistently meant a libertarian socialist until Murray Rothbard invented the term anarcho-capitalism. Just because someone might have thought of it before. I guarantee also this fool is going to go into market socialism and try and portray that as capitalism. I guarantee it. He's going to try and present mutualism as capitalist.
very clear that the meaning of words naturally evolves over time, which is something the socialist self-described anarchists consistently fail to grasp when they act as though, but Proudhon called himself a socialist, is this devastating argument. Ironically, it's often these very same people who will get extremely upset about calling fascists socialist, even though the fascists were using this term much more recently than the individualist anarchists.
Yeah, but another thing, though, is the fascists who referred to themselves as socialists. He's referring to the Nazi Party, the National Socialists. Another thing you might, in context, another thing you might want to point out is they also took socialists and put them in jail and then murdered them. Like, that's another thing that they did. So that you might, like, in context, that might be one of the reasons we wouldn't consider them socialist. And another might be that the term privatization was literally coined to describe Nazi economic policy. They were ardently capitalist. It's ridiculous. He's just saying things.
And if you forget about labels and look purely at economic policy, The views of most fascists were much closer to modern socialism than were the views of someone like Benjamin Tucker were.
Patently untrue. That fascists have any sort of economic policy goals in step with socialists, other than like they both believe there should be basic social services. Like that is not typically reserved for fascists and socialists. It's pretty much everybody believes that except libertarians, right libertarians.
But I digress. Anarchist history. Let's go. The first recorded use of the word anarchism in the English language comes in 1642, at the start of the English Civil War. Here, it wasn't a political ideology. No one was going around calling themselves an anarchist at this point. It was used as a pejorative, probably by supporters of King Charles to describe the parliamentarians, who they saw as rebelling against the king. Basically, they were calling them advocates of leaderlessness and chaos. It wasn't until about 200 years later in France that Pierre-Joseph Proudhon began using
Pierre-Joseph Proudhon,
the word anarchism to describe his ideology. He was the first person to do this, and the father of anarchism. In his 1840 essay, What is Property?, Proudhon defined anarchy as the absence of a master or sovereign, writing, "Neither heredity, nor election, nor universal suffrage, nor the excellence of the sovereign, nor the consecration of religion and of time, can make royalty legitimate. Whatever form it takes, monarchic, oligarchic, or democratic, royalty, or the government of man by man, is illegitimate and absurd." Clear.
So like, for example, like, just off the top of my head, if someone could tell you what to do all day, or else you couldn't eat or have a place to live, that would be an example of someone in spirit, in the way that Proudhon is talking about it, being a king and ruling over you. It would also be a way to describe your boss. So, kind of seems anti-capitalist to me. I don't know.
Clearly, no anarcho-capitalist would disagree with this. If you were to ask
Many
an ANCAP
would
to define anarchy, they would probably say something very similar. A stateless society.
Bullshit, they would. Bullshit. They never talk about anarchy in terms of not being ruled over. They talk about it in terms of being left alone. The bullshit, they would describe anarcho-capitalism that way. It's never about your rights to equality and being level with others. It's that no one can come interfere with you. No one can come and take things away from you. It's a subtle difference, but bullshit, they would describe it that way.
And yet, the very same collectivist anarchists who so fiercely denounce Rothbardianism tend to be much more willing to accept Proudhon as the father of anarchism.
Is he saying Proudhon wasn't anti-capitalist? He is absolutely saying that. And you can tell he hasn't read What is Property, because the answer to the question, what is property, is that it's theft. And NCAPs will often point to like the earlier chapters where he sets up the arguments for property, which he does so that he can later destroy them and like take them apart and say, here's why these don't work. And they'll point to those and out of context and go, see, he believed in property. It's ridiculous. See how easy it is to predict their arguments. This is where they always go.
Why is that? Well, essentially it boils down to a statement Proudhon makes in the same essay, in answer to the title of his work. Property is robbery. On the surface, this does sound quite antithetical to the Rothbardian view.
It sure does.
Not to mention self-contradictory. I mean, how can property be theft when the concept of theft necessarily presupposes the idea of property? And it gets even more complicated.
Not in the sense that Proudhon is using it, my dude. This is the most basic shit. He's not saying property as in like your food, your toothbrush. He's talking about property as in like a factory. Dude.
When Proudhon, in a later work entitled systems of economical contradictions, declares property is liberty, while still maintaining the property's theft line. So what's going on here? Does Proudhon think that liberty is theft? Well, not exactly. To answer that question, we first have to understand that Proudhon is French. And there are two very...
He just keeps calling him Proudhon.
important implications of that. Firstly, it means that he's part of the tradition of continental philosophy. So just like Nietzsche, Hegel, and Foucault, he has a tendency to write somewhat poetically, even at the expense of clarity at times. And secondly, in 19th century France and Europe as a whole, a portion of land was still owned by aristocrats who had acquired their land and therefore their wealth not by homesteading and not by voluntary transactions, but by being part of the state.
Okay, so then if that is the standard, right? If the standard is it's okay to take the property, it's theft if they didn't get it through homesteading and some mixing their labor with the land or whatever, then like literally anyone who can't prove that their ancestors were homesteading, that's public property then, right? And I can just walk on and I can homestead on it and it's mine now. Like it's such a fucking ridiculous thing to hang your hat on, because if you accept that premise, then like literally all inherited wealth now belongs to the people, right? But that is the antithesis to everything he believes.
So property was indeed theft in the straightforward Rothbardian sense, that property at least. That is, it was land stolen from the peasants who worked it by a hereditary class of nobles that formed the medieval state.
And it was never given back, and the people who own it now, their ownership stems back from that. Ergo, even if you want to follow your principles, then all current land should be given back to the people who can then mix their labor with it, and then it's rightly theirs.
These landed titles were rightfully abolished in the French Revolution of 1789, but were later partially restored. By the time of the 1840s, when Proudhon wrote What is Property?, French society was again becoming discontent with this state of affairs. So, the property that Proudhon identified...
French society was always discontent with this state of affairs. It's just that the overwhelming majority of French society wasn't literate, so we don't have their writings about how discontent they were with it. The idea that, like, the overwhelming majority of people who are peasants are just, and serfs, and just, like, owned by their feudal lord and have to pay to survive... Like, the fact that they would be okay with that arrangement is ridiculous. They didn't just become not okay with it on some ideological dispute.
Identifies with liberty is not in principle the same as the property he identifies with theft or robbery. But he believed that in practice the two had become entangled, and the essence of his political ideology, which he named anarchism, was an effort to disentangle the two. At one point in What is Property?, Proudhon makes this explicit, declaring his agreement with another philosopher, Pierre Leroux, in the statement, "There is property and property, the one good, the other bad. Now, as it is proper to call different things by different names, if we keep the name property for the former, we must call the latter robbery, rapine, brigandage. If, on the contrary, we reserve the name property for the latter, we must designate the former by the term possession or some such equivalent. Otherwise, we should be troubled with an unpleasant synonymy." When a classical liberal economist...
See, that's the thing, is you've established that he considered there to be two forms of property. You have not thusly established that the two forms of property he believed in were what you just claimed they were.
Jérôme Adolphe Blanqui wrote to Proudhon saying that it was not really property he wanted to abolish, but the abuse of property. Proudhon basically agreed, saying, "Monsieur Blanqui acknowledges that property is abused in many harmful ways. I call property the sum of these abuses exclusively.
he just moments ago talked about how Proudhon would use words poetically, and now he's taking him like so hyper literally out of context. Like he doesn't mean that literally property is the sum of these abuses and not like a thing someone owns. Like, come on, dude.
To each of us, property seems a polygon whose angles need knocking off. But, the operation performed, Monsieur Blanqui maintains that the figure will still be a polygon, while I consider that this figure will be a circle. It is kind of strange that he would say this, and then go on to say property is liberty. But this was quite a while before he wrote that essay, Economical Contradictions, so he presumably changed his mind about whether the term property could be salvaged in the interim. Proudhon was not the only one disturbed by the contradictions of society at the time, and in fact, tensions would soon boil over in the 1848 revolution in France, which was part of the larger Springtime of Nations, a series of liberal revolutions in Europe for which this channel is named.
Well, there you go. I learned something today.
The revolution, which was supported by both Proudhon and his frenemy, the classical liberal economist Bastiat, saw noble titles abolished again. But that same year saw the beginning of the rise of another idea, which would become the mortal enemy of Proudhon's anarchism: communism. Although Karl Marx was influenced by Proudhon's What is Property essay, he would come to reject Proudhon's ideas, and he wrote an entire essay attacking him called The Poverty of Philosophy in 1847. The next year, amidst the revolutions, Marx and Engels published the Communist Manifesto. Proudhon clarified his property is theft statement several times, denouncing communism. In 1849, 1 year after the Springtime of Nations and the publication of the Communist Manifesto, Proudhon would publish Confessions of a Revolutionary, where he reflected on his involvement in the revolution and clarified his position somewhat. In this document, he stated, "In my first memoirs, attacking the established order at the front, I said, for example, property is theft. It was a matter of protesting, so to speak, in relief the nothingness of our institutions. I was then not occupied with anything else. Also, in the memoir in which I demonstrated, by A plus B, this stunning proposition, I had to take care to protest against any communist conclusion." Indeed, later, one of Proudhon's American followers, an anarchist named Benjamin Tucker, who will come up later, would clarify Proudhon's position using writing which is somewhat easier to understand on account of his not being French. It will probably surprise many who know nothing of Proudhon, save his declaration that property is robbery, to learn that he was perhaps the most vigorous hater of communism that ever lived on this planet.
But like, there's communism, the ideology as it was referred to back then. They're referring to state communism, right? It's no one denies that Proudhon and Marx disputed one another.
But the apparent inconsistency vanishes when you read his book and find that by property he means simply legally privileged wealth or the power of usury, and not at all
legally privileged wealth. There you go. That is expressly a condemnation of capitalism. What is capitalism if not the use of the state of force to protect private property, a legal privilege, one might say, that is granted to the wealthy and not to the poor?
All the possession by the laborer of his products. We believe, with Proudhon, that communism is the religion of poverty and slavery. At bottom, it is the majority principle itself, and liberty lives to do it battle. Notice in the first quote that Tucker, like Proudhon, thought that usury, or the charging of interest on loans, shouldn't exist. Isn't that contrary to the views of modern anarcho-capitalists? Well, it is contrary to our predictions for what a stateless society would look like, but not to our basic prescriptions for what such a society should be. In other words, Proudhon and Tucker were not in favor of banning usury by force, but instead thought that it would naturally disappear when the privileges granted by the state were eliminated. In his debate with Frederick Bastiat on the topic, Proudhon clarified, "Interest is neither a crime nor an offense," and went on to say, "This fundamental denial of interest does not destroy, in our view, the principle, the right, if you will, which gives birth to interest, and which has enabled it to continue to this day in spite of its condemnation by secular and ecclesiastical authority. So that the real problem before us is not to ascertain whether usury per se is illegitimate, in this respect we are of the opinion of the Church, nor whether it has an excuse for its existence. On this point we agree with the economists. The problem is to devise a means of suppressing the abuse without violating the right, a means, in a word, of reconciling this contradiction." By the way, if you aren't familiar with this debate, I would highly recommend checking out Roderick Long's commentary on it.
It seems to me like when he talks about how we reconcile the contradiction of suppressing something without taking away people's rights, it seems to me like he very much was in favor of getting rid of it by force. He just didn't know how to reconcile that with his other beliefs regarding force. My guy.
Point in their exchange, Bastiat compliments Proudhon on having crushed communism. I'll put the link to that in the description. Bastiat is today considered one of the greatest minds of classical liberalism, and as I have pointed out in previous videos, it is highly notable that despite vehemently disagreeing about whether interest on loans would ultimately exist in a free market, they were quite complimentary of each other and seemed to consider themselves to be fundamentally on the same side. This is probably even more true of Bastiat's greatest disciple, Gustave Molinari,
show an example of them saying that.
Who was the first classical liberal to advocate complete statelessness. Like Bastiat, Molinari criticized Proudhon on interest, but also wrote to Proudhon, inviting him to publish some of his writings in Molinari's magazine. Anyway, once again, this was later put in a more straightforward language by Benjamin Tucker in his response to Auber and Herbert, a British thinker who first coined the term voluntarist. Herbert did not identify as an anarchist, but his positions were very close to those of Proudhon and Tucker, and he often contributed to Tucker's magazine. Tucker said, Auber and
for
Herbert,
example,
in his paper,
the way
Free
that
Life,
they were
asks me
similar
how I
is
justify a campaign against the right of men to lend and borrow. I answer that I do not justify such a campaign, have never attempted to justify such a campaign, do not advocate such a campaign. In fact, I am ardently opposed to such a campaign.
So the argument that he is making right now is that because Proudhon had similarities to Benjamin Tucker, and this guy contributed regularly to Benjamin Tucker's magazine, that his words can then be interpreted as Proudhon's words? Is that what I am to understand?
I ask Mr. Herbert how he justifies his apparent attribution to me of a wish to see such a campaign instituted. It is true that I expect lending and borrowing to disappear, but not by any denial of the right to lend and borrow. On the contrary, I expect them to disappear by virtue of the affirmation and exercise of a right that is now denied, namely...
Maybe he'll follow it up with Proudhon saying, like, yeah, what he said. But right now to just go, well, this guy was tangentially related to a guy that Proudhon was tangentially related to, and he believed this, doesn't prove anything.
The right to use one's own credit, or to exchange it freely for another's, in such a way that one or the other of these credits may perform the function of a circulating medium, without the payment of any tax for the privilege. He also says basically the same thing in response to another reader of his magazine Liberty. No anarchist disputes that it is perfectly legitimate to borrow on such terms as may be agreed upon in the free market. The complaint of anarchism is that the market is not free, and that the transactions affected therein are necessarily tainted with injustice. At present, if the young man borrows, whether of the cook or of the bank, the terms of the contract are dictated to his disadvantage by means of a legal privilege or monopoly enjoyed by the bank. Like many modern anarcho...
Yeah, but like, where the fuck do you think that comes from, dude? Like, he's referring to capitalism. I don't know how you can interpret that as anything but.
Capitalists, Proudhon called for a controlled process of political reform and transition to statelessness after the revolutionary capture of the state. In his essay, The State, Its Nature, Object, and Destiny, Proudhon clarifies that this process should involve market reforms and tax reforms, and denounces the idea of soaking the rich and increasing the overall tax burden, as he reflects on the Revolution of 1848. The Revolution of February raised two leading questions, one economic, the question of labor and property, the other political, the question of government or the state. On the first of these questions, the socialistic democracy is substantially in accord. They admit that it is not a question of the seizure and division of property, or even of its repurchase. Neither is it a question of dishonorably levying additional taxes on the wealthy and property-holding classes, which, while violating the principle of property recognized in the Constitution, would serve only to overturn the general economy and aggravate the situation of the proletariat. The economic reform consists, on the one hand, in opening usurious credit to competition, and thereby causing capital to lose its income. In other words, in identifying in every citizen to the same degree the capacity of the laborer and that of the capitalist. On the other hand, in abolishing the whole system of existing taxes, which fall only on the laborer and the poor man, and replacing them all by a single tax on capital, as an insurance premium. By these two great reforms, social economy is reconstituted from top to bottom. Commercial and industrial...
I feel like I'm taking crazy pills over here. Like, he just said his campaign involves removing all taxes on working people and putting them on capital, and you're using this as evidence that he doesn't support taxes on the wealthy. It's like you read the first sentence about how, like, taxing the wealth, none of this goes far enough, it doesn't fundamentally change the economy, and then just stopped reading. Oh, Piss Gang's here! Piss Gang!
And the profits, now assured to the capitalist, return to the laborer. Competition, now anarchical and subversive, becomes emulative and fruitful.
Listen to the passage he is reading. The profits return from the capitalist to the laborer, and you're arguing that this man is a capitalist. Like, listen to him. Listen to the words he is saying.
It's no longer being wanting. The working man and employer, intimately connected, have nothing more to fear from stagnation or suspension. A new order is established upon the old institutions abolished or regenerated. We affirm then, and as yet we are alone in affirming, that with the economic revolution no longer in dispute, the state must entirely disappear. You'll notice in this passage that Proudhon refers to socialistic democracy as agreeing with him when he says that the property of the rich in general should not be seized or faced with increased taxation. That's interesting, as it's certainly not the position of self-described socialists today. This is
maybe because you fucking misread it, dude. That's not what it said at all.
Socialism was a relatively new term, the meaning of which was very much in flux. Proudhon...
Well, that would seem to go against your earlier point about him disagreeing with communists, wouldn't it? My dude. I'm aware that Piss Gang is here. I celebrated the arrival of Piss Gang. How dare you?
Use the term socialist to signal a general allegiance to the lower social classes, and a belief that if his ideas were implemented, they would be better off, which is not how the term would later be used. He also identified socialism with the idea that some things can and should be collectively owned, so long as this is achieved voluntarily. On the subject, he wrote, "If by socialism you mean social right as opposed to individual right, I accept this system as an integral part of the whole system of humanity. But if you intend to give it predominance over liberty, I deny it. That is communism."
But he's saying that socialism, which which here defined as, let me just turn off the captions for a second, social right as opposed to individual right, i.e. social control over property, is integral to the whole system of humanity. But that he doesn't agree with it when it goes to take priority over liberty, which seems to be his definition of communism, which is, it is exactly how anarchists today frame it. My dude, you.
In my earlier video on the origins of fascism, I called Proudhon a libertarian socialist for simplicity's sake, but he never actually used that term for himself. In fact, the only person who was calling himself a libertarian in Proudhon's day was the first person to do so, Joseph de Jacques. Somewhat ironically, de Jacques was a bitter rival of Proudhon's and denounced his individualism. First identifying with Proudhon's term anarchist, de Jacques soon began to use the term libertarian more frequently, calling Proudhon a center-right anarchist, liberal, and not libertarian.
Yeah, but like that's leftists always call each other center-right. That's what we do if we don't like each other. Like, you don't know leftists at all.
Unlike many other self-described socialists of the time, de Jacques was not at all interested in workers keeping the product of their labor. Instead, he maintained that one's economic contributions were irrelevant, and anytime anyone produced anything of value, they were obligated to give it to whoever needed it for free. I probably don't need to tell you that this is the worldview of a parasite.
You do need to... a parasite, you see, is someone who believes... A parasite is someone who believes people should get what they need. It is parasitic to want to take the resources of the world, create things, and then distribute them to those that need them. That is what a parasite does. What a healthy being does in accordance, in natural symbiosis, is when you own everything and you get to get all of this stuff and the money. That's not parasitic. It's parasitic when you want to help people get things they need. That makes perfect sense.
Mashallah, it remained a fringe idea for the rest of de Jacques' life. Neither his communistic views nor his use of the word libertarian would catch on. De Jacques' magazine, The Libertarian, would only run for 3 years from 1858 to 1861. And indeed, as long as Proudhon lived, the anarchist movement as a whole would remain relatively close to his views.
This is the thing, right? Is by this dude's own admission, the first person to use the term libertarian was a socialist. And he just said that in a previous essay, he referred to Proudhon as a libertarian socialist for simplicity. So if one were to sum up him for simplicity's sake, they would refer to him as a libertarian socialist. So then all of your whole spiel, you don't even believe it.
Even those self-described anarchists who had some disagreements with Proudhon often did not disagree with him in a direction that modern anarcho-communists would approve of. For example, take Anselm Bellegarrigue. He was the author of the first anarchist manifesto ever written in 1850. This document is the original source of the often quoted phrase, "Anarchy is order, government is civil war." This phrase would later be represented by the famous symbol of the A inside the O, meaning anarchy and order. What's interesting about Bellegarrigue is that he was actually not an anarchist by modern definitions, in that he believed the state should exist in a minimal form, only protecting the lives and property of citizens from domestic criminals and foreign armies.
Then what, if he is not an anarchist, then...
As the Anarchist Manifesto states, there are only 2 points among the people on which no divergence of opinion can exist. 2 points on which converge the good sense of all parties, irrespective of details. Those 2 points are the repression of crime against the person and against property, and the defense of the territory. So, well, why should we seek the guardian spirit of a government outside this reservoir of the common aspirations of all? Why should we permit the introduction of a dose of individual attachments to this potion prepared for the health of all? That's right. The anarchy symbol that communists use today comes from a quote by a literal minarchist.
That's not what he's saying, you utter dipshit. Also, you use that too. You can't pretend like fucking anarcho-capitalists don't use the same symbols. Like, don't even bother. But he's saying that, like, we all agree that these things are good, but we allow the government to do other things. Why is that? Why is the state given a mandate to do other things other than the things we all agree are necessary? He's not saying that ergo the same institution should be maintained but kept to a minimal degree so that it can only do those things. He's asking, hypothetically, why it is we allow it to have other powers than doing the things we agree.
The most important implication of the fact that Belgarigue held this position is that it showed that early anarchists believed that private property should, in principle, be protected, even by the state, if they thought it necessary.
Again, there's more than... For this whole spiel about how words can have different meanings, you should consider the fact that property can mean multiple things, particularly to socialists. When we talk about property, we make a distinction between private and personal property. Any honest reckoning with socialism has to take that into account. So, like, I believe that it is wrong for people to steal your Xbox. I don't think it's wrong for you to steal Walmart's Xbox.
Belgarigue goes on to argue that conservatives and liberals are afraid of socialism, but they shouldn't be, because socialism or any other doctrine cannot touch their property unless it is mandated through the state, and therefore it is really the state that they should be afraid of. In his words, it is therefore shown that socialism is no more to be feared in itself than any other philosophical doctrine. It is established that it can become dangerous only in the condition of governing. That comes down to saying that nothing is dangerous which does not govern, and from this it follows that whoever governs is already or can become dangerous, and the strict consequence is still that the nation can have no public enemy other than the government. When Proudhon died in 1865, however, the term anarchist would begin down a path.
He literally says in the quote you just gave that socialism is not to be feared and that the actual thing to be fought off is the state. And you're using this as proof that he's against socialism, or that socialism is only given power through the state, which I didn't see him say in that quotation you gave.
Of being appropriated by some people with far more serious deviations from his ideology than Belgarigue's minarchism. 1864 had seen the establishment of the International Workingmen's Association, later to become known as the First International, an ideologically eclectic alliance of groups affiliated with the labor movement. A common theme of its membership was an identification with the term socialism, although some elements of the group were recognizable as socialists by the term's modern definition.
Let us grant him everything he has said thus far as an exercise. We accept that words' definitions change over time, and also that Proudhon referred to himself as, or Proudhon was not a socialist, even though he might have identified himself. He might have used these words. He might have, let's grant all of it. Let's say that Proudhon was viciously pro-liberty. He believed in the maintenance of private property. Let's just accept all of that. If then, after 1864, the definition changed, and all of these people with serious differences started using it, then that's still the overwhelming majority of anarchist history. It's been used as a term for libertarian socialism. Like, even if we were to accept your phony bullshit arguments as true, you would still, by your own logic, be wrong.
And others were not. In the group's first few congresses, Proudhonian anarchists largely dominated the discussion. At one point, Blanquists, who were followers of Blanqui, but not the classical liberal Blanqui I mentioned earlier, but his younger brother, who was a statist communist. Anyway, these people showed up and denounced the Proudhonists, but they were soon kicked out of the Congress. Unfortunately, that would not be the last time that Proudhonists would cross paths with the Blanquists. Before Proudhon died, he had designated his most trusted disciple, a man named Gustave Chaudet, as the executor of his estate,
Chaudet.
and basically expected him to succeed him as the next caliph of anarchism. That sounds pretty important.
What's a caliph? Is that some anime bullshit? Is that a Naruto? It sounds like a Naruto. Does anyone know? I've never heard this term before. Or it's caliph. Okay, the closed captions threw me off there.
So why has basically no one...
I won't comment on the absurdity of that. I assume that was a joke on his part, and he understands the ridiculousness of calling Proudhon a caliph.
heard of Chaudet? Well, it has to do with both the Blanquists and an anarchist you might have heard of, Mikhail Bakunin. Although he was never personally close with Proudhon, he was influenced by him quite a bit, to the point that he self-identified as an anarchist, although he was certainly influenced by Karl Marx as well. Bakunin was a pan-Slavic nationalist, and was inspired by property norms of the Russian peasantry, which were more collectivist and communal than those of Western Europe. He once criticized Proudhon's individualism, writing, "How ridiculous are the ideas of the individualists of the Jean-Jacques Rousseau school and the Proudhonian mutualists, who conceive society as the result of free contract of individuals, absolutely independent of one another, and entering into mutual relations only because of the convention drawn up among men. As if these men had dropped from the skies, bringing with them speech, will, original thought. As if they were alien to anything of the earth, that is, anything having social origin."
And it's absolutely right. I would 100% agree with Bakunin on this.
So Bakunin is basically saying that no man is an island. Taxes are the price we pay to live in a civilized society. And
What? What? The word tax does not at all appear in that passage. That is a complete extrapolation. No, he did not say that at all. He's saying that no one exists without the input of other people, that you cannot live in the world without being the product of the world. He's not therefore saying, so we should live in a Nordic model high-tax social democracy, dude.
Proudhon should just move to Somalia. Although he also at times claimed to be the true successor to Proudhon. As Proudhon grew older, he made his views on property clearer and clearer, and not in a way Bakunin
For
liked.
example?
On his deathbed, Proudhon would declare, "I protest that in criticizing property, or rather the whole body of institutions of which property is the pivot, I never meant either to attack the individual rights recognized by previous laws, or to dispute the legitimacy of acquired possessions, or to instigate an arbitrary distribution of goods, or to put an obstacle in the way of the free and regular acquisition of properties by bargain and sale, or even to prohibit or suppress by sovereign decree land rent and interest on capital. I think that all these manifestations of human activity should remain free and optional for all. I would admit no other modifications, restrictions, or suppressions of them than naturally and necessarily result from the universalization of the principle of reciprocity and of the law of synthesis, which I propound. This is my last will and testament."
So fucking, are you just going to ignore that? Are you going to ignore? Because he says no, I'm not saying that we put any of these artificial restrictions. I am saying that we put on no restrictions other than those which necessarily result from the universalization of the principle of reciprocity and the law of synthesis, which I propound. So, ergo, there are suppressions, modifications, restrictions that he would put on private property.
I allow only him to suspect its sincerity, who could tell a lie in the moment of death. Well, apparently Bakunin could tell a lie in the moment of death, because he basically ignored this, and chose to interpret Proudhon as advocating collectivization of property. Now, as you might expect, the executor of Proudhon's estate, Gustave Chaudet, was having none of this. The two men were now set on a collision course, and this would become apparent in the early meetings of both the First International, as well as another group with largely overlapping membership, the League of Peace and Freedom. The League of Peace and Freedom was formed in response to the growing tension between France and Prussia, and sought to prevent the two powers from going to war. However, in practice, they often ended up debating about random things they disagreed on. Naturally, one of those things was property. In the organization's second annual Congress at Bern, Switzerland, members voted on what the official position of the group should be on the collectivizing of privately owned land, which, again, I'm not really sure why that needs to be voted on in an organization that was formed to prevent war between France and Prussia, but whatever. Chaudet, along with most of the
Yeah, I mean, how could land ownership in any way contribute to two nations going to war? Name one nation that's ever gone to war with another nation over economic policy. It just doesn't happen.
Described anarchists voted against that collectivization proposition, which made sense since at the time, anarchist largely meant someone who held Proudhon's views more or less. However, Bakunin emerged as the leader of a new faction of self-described anarchists who called themselves collectivists. They voted with the likes of Karl Marx and other state socialists to collectivize property. Fortunately, though, despite this defection, the Proudhonists still won the vote. As Chaudet would recount in a letter, "We have done a good enough job at Bern. I found myself in hand-to-hand combat with the famous Bakunin, the Russian revolutionary, carrying in his wake all the collectivists, or partisans of collective property. It's a new word for that old tune of communism. They also have a way of conceiving of the federalist idea, which, by expanding it and letting it spread and go well beyond the concrete is the true realism, reduce it to a pure abstraction, a chimera, an imperceptible generality."
This is what I do when I want to show what someone thinks is I quote someone else describing them. There's a lot of reasons why an anarchist group might reject a bill about collectivizing property. Maybe they don't agree with the way that it was done. You would have to then show what the bill was, what it entailed, what they disagreed with about it.
A sentimental banality. We fought all of that robustly and firmly, and, with a complete victory, we reconstituted the League of Peace on a serious and robust foundation. This further entrenched the divide between the individualists under Chaudet and the collectivists under Bakunin, and caused Bakunin to grow closer to Marx. In fact, in a letter to Marx shortly after this incident, Bakunin would write, "I understand better than ever how right you are in following and inviting us all to march on the wide road of economic revolution, and in denigrating those among us who would lose themselves on the paths of either national or exclusively political enterprises." This is probably a swipe at Chaudet. "I now do what you yourself commenced to do more than 20 years ago. Since the solemn and public farewells that I addressed to the bourgeois at the Bern Congress, I have known no other society, no other milieu, than the world of the workers. My homeland now is the International, of which you are one of the
Do
principal..."
you notice how when he reads someone he agrees with, he gives them a pleasant voice, but when he reads someone he doesn't agree with, he gives them an angry voice? I understand better than how every right you are in the following, and in inviting us all to march on the wide road of economic revolution. Come on, guy.
Founders. So you see, dear friend, that I am your disciple, and I am proud to be it. Unfortunately, despite losing the vote, Bakunin would begin to lead other anarchists down this same road with him. The turning point came after the League of Peace and Freedom had failed to prevent the Franco-Prussian War, and France was decisively defeated. Soon, the Prussians were laying siege to Paris, which
I'm getting mighty sick of this guy. You can literally, like, if he had done just the slightest checking, why do people call Proudhon a socialist? All you have to do is go to his Wikipedia article. Look at this. If he had checked this, right, instead of just cherry picking quotations, hold on, let me get this in the right window. Instead of just cherry picking quotations that suited his argument, let's see. 1 second here. Oh my God, Chrome, cooperate with me. Proudhon called himself a socialist, was recognized in one, and still is. 4 different citations, right? As one of the first theorists of libertarian socialism, Proudhon opposed state ownership of capital goods in favor of ownership by workers themselves and associations. Proudhon was one of the main influences on the theory of worker self-management in the late 19th and 20th century. Proudhon strenuously rejected the ownership of products of labor by capitalists or the state, arguing in What is Property that while property in product does not carry with it property in the means of production, the right to product is exclusive and the right to means is common. It's right there. That's 3 quotes that just, beyond the shadow of a doubt, demonstrate that he did not believe what you claim he believed. Social ownership. While favoring individual ownership for small property holdings, Proudhon advocated social ownership in worker cooperatives or similar workers' associations and workers' councils. Proudhon advocated industrial democracy and repeatedly argued that the means of production and the land should be socialized. In What is Property, Proudhon wrote that land is indispensable to our existence, consequently a common thing, consequently insusceptible of appropriation. In a letter to Louis Blanqui in 1841, Proudhon wrote that all capital, whether material or mental, being the result of collective labor, is, in consequence, collective property. Now, if you want to say, then, right, that, you're just reading the Wikipedia article, anyone can write Wikipedia, it is then incumbent on you to dispute that he said this or dispute the meaning of that passage, which it could not be clear. It could not be clear. Once again, in short, property in capital is indivisible and consequently inalienable, not necessarily when capital is uncreated, but when it is common or collective. All capital, whether material or mental, being the result of collective labor, is in consequence collective property. It is literally the opposite of what you are claiming Proudhon believed. It is so unbelievably dishonest. Yeah. To quote Proudhon, I have never penned nor uttered any such thing and have argued the opposite 100 times over. I deny all kinds of proprietary domain. I deny it precisely because I believe in an order wherein the instruments of labor will cease to be appropriated and instead become shared, where the whole earth will be depersonalized. It would then fall upon you, if you disagree, that this is what Proudhon believed, to prove either that quote is not real. You would have to. You can see the citations here. It's the ISBN numbers are here. Like you can find where they're getting that citation from. You would have to prove that it wasn't real, or that it's taken out of context, or that he meant something different. It literally, first Google result. If you Google Pierre-Joseph Proudhon, this is the first thing that will come up. This is the bare minimum. This is all it would take. And the fact that it's all written there for anyone to see, right? If you were going to then dispute that Proudhon was a socialist, this, I think, would be one of the most important documents to dispute. It is fundamentally dishonest to claim that Proudhon, when he refers to individual rights or individual property, means the same thing as we understand that today. That the way that it's been twisted and misinterpreted by ANCAPs to mean I can own a nuclear weapon. It's fundamentally dishonest. I'm getting heated. It's just it's so tiresome, right? Because if you think about writing this essay, if you think about the amount of research that he put in, that he clearly had to dance around so much information. There's just this isn't something that Proudhon was ambiguous about. He was quite clear about this in basically everything he wrote. And to cherry pick citations that out of context appear to confirm your hypothesis, to such a thorough degree, when literally just checking, just Google the words Proudhon socialist, see what comes up, would thoroughly destroy this belief. He had to go out of his way to not learn this. It's so frustrating. Why is he so keen for this guy to agree with him? Just say you disagree and that this other long dead guy is right about how best to do anarchism? Well, it's because he's trying to, by claiming Proudhon, therefore, that because Proudhon agreed to me and he coined the term, therefore this is what the term means because he coined it. Which seems to go against his screed in the beginning about how language changes over time. It's the amount that he had to read, there's no way he didn't come across a passage where Proudhon expressly said he doesn't agree with the conclusion he is trying to draw. There's just no way. He either ignored it or just is in denial. He's either deliberately lying or he is in such deep denial. If you want your argument to be that it doesn't matter how the word was used historically, this is what it means now, and so therefore it's valid to say that we can call ourselves this. Okay, I can't dispute that, but if you want your argument to be that historically this is what the word has always meant, it's just fundamentally untrue. And you must know that. I agree with everything you say, but the name is Proudhorn. Poonhound. It's Pierre Joseph Poonhound. Coming in for the kill. Foghorn Proudhorn. Pretty sure it's Pound of Ham. It's Poonhound. Thought Slime is becoming a debate streamer. Absolutely. Now I have a list of slurs I'd like to say. In alphabetical order. Can I not search this document? Control F, Control F, Control. You're a PDF. Let me search you. I cannot search? Why cannot I search? This is... Oh, okay. Oh, there's so many pages. Okay. I would like to go to page 2867, please. It's a very big book. Hold on. Did I get that page right? Sorry, everybody. I will be speaking again in but a moment. Two 2867. Okay, 2867. Thought Slime's eyeliner is on point. I'm not wearing eyeliner, but thank you. I just have naturally luscious lashes. Let us stare at Matt and enjoy. We're doing it live. One second. Proudhon stated, I am socialist, selected writings of Pierre Joseph Proudhon, page 195, and described himself as a socialist many times. This also applies to Proudhon himself. So the question arises, did Proudhon support private property in the capitalist sense of the word? The answer is no. To quote George Woodcock's summary, I think it should be George Woodcock's summary, of Proudhon's ideas on the subject, we find he, Proudhon, was denouncing the property of a man who uses it to exploit the labor of others. Without an effort on his own part, property distinguished by interest and rent, by the impositions of the non-producer on the producer, towards property regarded as possession, the right of a man to control his dwelling and the land and tool he needs to live. Proudhon has no hostility. Indeed, he regarded it as the cornerstone of liberty. George Crowder makes the same point. The ownership he opposes is basically that which is unearned, including such things as interest on loans and income from rent. This is contrasted with ownership rights in those goods either produced by the work of the worker or necessary for that work. For example, his dwelling house, land, and tools. Proudhon initially refers to legitimate rights of ownership of these goods as possession, and although in his later work he calls this property, the conceptual distinction remains the same. Indeed, according to Proudhon himself, the accumulation of capital and instrument is what the capitalist owes to the producer, but he never pays him for it. It is in this fraudulent deprivation which causes the poverty of the worker, the opulence of the idle, and the inequality of their conditions. And it is this, above all, which has so aptly called the exploitation of man by man. It is not shy about it. In addition, we must point out that Proudhon's emphasis on the genuine antagonism between state power and property rights came from his later writings, in which he argued that property rights were required to control state power. In other words, this heterodoxy came from a period in which Proudhon did not think that state could be abolished, and so property is the only power that can act as a counterweight to the state. Of course, this later Proudhon also acknowledged that property was an absolutism within an absolutism, by nature autocratic, and that its politics could be summed up in a single word, namely exploitation. Again, this is all from the Anarchist FAQ, right? Again, the two sources that the first person would look to solve this problem, if I were to look for the arguments that my enemy was using in order to dispute them, if I were in his position and I wanted to look, where do these anarchists, these lefty pinko stinkos, get the idea that Proudhon is a socialist? Right? This would be a source that I would dispute. I would read it and then dismantle its points. Or come to agree with it. I dropped my Xbox 360 controller. That's fine. It's fine. It's invincible. I've had it for like 10 years. Interestingly, one of Proudhon's other heterodoxies, Kaplan does not mention, is his belief that property was required not only to defend people against the state, but also capitalism. He saw society dividing into two classes, one of employed workers, the other of property owners, capitalists, and entrepreneurs. He thus recognized that capitalism was just as oppressive as the state, and that it assured the victory of the strong over the weak, of those who property over those who own nothing. Thus, Proudhon's argument that property is liberty is directly not only against the state, but also against social inequality and concentrations of economic power and wealth. It's like he takes the word property. When Proudhon says that property is liberty, he's literally talking about workers owning the means of production. And he's trying to portray this. He's trying to portray Proudhon saying this as though that means that Proudhon was a secret capitalist. It's flat on its face fucking wrong. And even if it were right, fuck Proudhon. Fuck him. He was a huge anti-Semite. He was a terrible dude. He's you don't have to care what that guy thought. It's Who is trying to portray Proudhon this way? I'm confused. It's the Spring of Nations, baby. Spring of Nations is trying to portray Proudhon this way. And it's I will say this for the man. This is by far the best argument I have seen for this point. The fact that everything he is saying is utter nonsense is more cleverly disguised than ANCAPs typically manage to pull off. But if you look into what Proudhon believed literally at all, if you look into the way he uses the words he's using, it is completely self-evident that everything this guy is saying is utter baloney. It is not a producer's reference. It is apparently, and I learned this from him, so fair dues. When after the Paris Commune, there was a bunch of European revolutions that collectively were referred to as the springtime of nations. Which, it's I don't think the Paris Commune was exactly libertarian in the sense that he would use it. Anyway, I have grown bored of this man. I would like to move on to a different ding-dong. We have watched half an hour of this guy, and it has frustrated me a great deal. Let us move on. There's half an hour more. I don't know if I can do it right now. I might come back to it in a future stream. I got a question for you. Can a Christian be libertarian? Do you think? What do you guys think, everybody? This is from the Libertarian Christian Institute. So I'm guessing that he has one particular perspective on this. I'm gonna guess that he says yes. Yes, it is. But let's see.
Yeah, I think so.
Yes, I think so.
Oh my goodness, absolutely.
I think any good Christian almost has to be a libertarian.
You can be a Christian and have a, free market libertarian perspective. There are other people who see these things as compatible.
Is this literally just a video of people saying yes?
Institute is an integral part of today's liberty movement.
What I love about the Libertarian Christian Institute is when people first hear about it, it immediately gets them on an intellectual journey.
We need to convince people out there that there is no disharmony between libertarian principles and the teachings of Jesus.
We
Proceed.
can actually look to the scriptures, to Christian history and theology, and the message of the gospel to understand that a peaceful society and a prosperous society depends on freedom and how we treat other people.
We help
I don't recall that from Sunday school.
Society.
Oh my God, I'm blown away. I'm sorry, everybody. That was that video. I picked out a bunch of I picked out 2 videos. I thought because I thought that was longer. There was no argument there to debate, but it's hilarious that they put up a video saying, "Can a Christian be a libertarian?" and then just had themselves go, "Yep. Yeah, man. You can." Which is true. Like, there are libertarian Christians. I think the more pertinent question might be, hey, don't you think it's weird that you're part of the religion that says you're supposed to give all your money to the poor, and your economic philosophy and outlook is the opposite of that? Don't you think that's a bit of a contradiction? Oh man, I'm so bummed. I thought that would be like a longer... There's got to be something on their channel that I can... Let me boil it down for you right now. It's harder and harder to find good libertarian content because they all just release podcasts, essentially. They all just like put up a video with like a single image. And it's so boring. No, there's no good. You know what I mean by good? I don't mean like good as in well-reasoned or thought out. I meant like visually dynamic and like well-edited and any effort being put into it whatsoever, which is amazing to me, right? Because they always talk about like, oh, communists are so lazy. And it's like, well, you know, you didn't learn how to edit videos before putting this video out. You didn't learn how to use your equipment correctly. You didn't learn any of this stuff. You're just fucking throwing it up on YouTube with like little to no editing. I don't want to resort to Caitlin Bennett. I open the floor to thee. Does anyone have suggestions for libertarian content? Because I don't want to go to Caitlin Bennett. Did the Cato Institute stop making videos? The Cato Institute is fundamentally boring, but let's see what they're up to. For those that don't know, the Cato Institute is a libertarian economic policy think tank who believe in a philosophy called praxeology, which holds that everything is the result of rational action and can be deduced from a set of logical principles. Therefore, if an experiment to prove a praxeological axiom demonstrates that it's untrue, the experiment is wrong. If reality disagrees with their theory, reality is wrong. This is not me misrepresenting them. This is literally what they believe. Again, it's all just podcasts. Was that the entire video? Can you be a Christian anarchist? It was, unfortunately. Oh, am I confusing the Cato Institute and the von Mises Institute? My bad. Oh, Freedom Tunes. Excellent call. They released something recently that I wanted to look at too. That's such a good suggestion. Okay, we've hit the mother lode. Ladies and gentlemen, Freedom Tunes is it's like, imagine if Family Guy decided to lean into racism and to just be terrible. I mean, it's already pretty terrible. If right-wingers were left-wingers, here we go.
Okay, honestly, if you're gonna tell me that non-binary trans people are not every bit as valid as male to female trans folk, that's called being a turf gang, okay? And there's absolutely no place for you in the movement, alright, folks?
It's funny because he said something that's true, but he said it real fast, like Ben Shapiro says stuff. If right-wingers wanted to be monetized, yeah, that's a big problem in their movement. They don't make any money. Let's just scroll down here. Patreon.com/freedomtunes. Let's check that out. Let's see what they're about. Oh, he makes $5,000 a month, huh? In addition to any YouTube revenue? Yeah, it's pretty clear conservatives are not being monetized. Interesting.
It's like, man, I don't know if there's an idea more.
Look at this. This one's funny. Fascism. Opposing giving hormone blockers to 3-year-olds. The more you don't want to give hormone blockers to 3-year-olds, the fascister it is. The thing is the left is pretty consistent with its definition of fascism, but no one wants to give hormone blockers to 3-year-olds. That is a complete straw man argument. The idea is hormone blockers should be available to prepubescent children because they're the people that benefit from them. The whole idea is to delay puberty, and it's completely reversible, by the way, if they change their mind later in life. It is, but like a 3-year-old is not yet at the point where they have an idea of gender, period, let alone their gender identity.
More reprehensible than not keeping hate speech off of campus. It's like, what's the point of going to a university if you don't feel safe? The vast majority of...
Like, that's not a ridiculous thing to believe. Like, yeah, it is. It is. If you go to university and you physically don't feel safe, it's going to be difficult to learn things. You're just saying it quickly doesn't make it wrong.
Americans are fine using their neighbors' pronouns. They know it doesn't cost them anything. But for some reason, the elite aren't okay with that. People invested in upholding the status quo don't think you should identify with whatever gender you choose. You should use the one they pick for you. This is a whole...
Yeah, but like, yeah, isn't that kind of a rebuttal of the conservative idea that it's all about individual rights? You know? Like, if isn't that kind of a conservative argument for why you should respect people's gender identity? And like, think about the fucking, he's trying to present the left as like, oh, they're out of their mind. They're saying all this crazy stuff. Like, for example, that you should respect people's pronouns. Like, what's the worst that's going to happen if you do that, dog? Like, you could, if you were going to exaggerate it, if you wanted to exaggerate it, you go, you know, you talk about like, oh, the police should have the right to come arrest people for not using the right pronouns. That would be an example of how you could dial up make it seem ridiculous instead of just saying something that like most people are going to go, well, what's wrong with that?
If you don't use my pronouns, you'd better well be ready to take a taste of my bike lock. Imagine my shock when the mainstream media ignores that Donald Trump is literally Voldemort. I would like to welcome you to my 12-part lecture series on The Handmaid's Tale.
Okay, folks.
Oh yeah, no, that's ridiculous. Jordan Peterson would never do that. Jordan Peterson, if he was a leftist, he'd spend all of his time talking about The Handmaid's Tale. How hilarious. Instead, he cries about Pinocchio and talks about how Frozen is agitprop to make children hate men.
If you think you're entitled to the excess labor of your employees just because you built a business, that's called stealing, gang, okay? Capitalism is literal slavery, and you belong in a gulag.
J.K. Rowling is a fantastic author who wrote the best book series in all of history.
That's... So this was March 11th, 2011, by the way. Just hey, Freedom Tunes, just a quick update vis-a-vis J.K. Rowling. The left not a big fan of her anymore. She's kind of on the outs with the left. Also, probably could have done a second take with this line, because earlier your Paul Joseph Watson impression was really good, and now it sounds like he's drunk or tired. It doesn't sound right at all.
So you can imagine my surprise when she used her privilege as a rich white cisgendered woman to literally get trans people killed by Nazis in Trump's Holocaust. They're putting representations on the television that turn the friggin' kids straight! Congress shall make no law.
So like, if Alex Jones was a leftist, he would say crazy things like, for example, that they're putting stuff in the media that turns kids straight. But right now he says precisely the opposite. He says that the gay agenda is turning kids gay, and we are not expected to treat that as ridiculous for some reason. Like, it's ridiculous if you believe that way. If you believe the thing that I imagine leftists believe, that's crazy. But if you believe like what Alex Jones actually says, you know, that they're putting chemicals in the water that turn frogs gay, like that's normal. But imagine how wacky he'd be if he was a leftist.
Prohibiting the right of the people to peaceably assemble. At least, that's what the Constitution says. But President Voldemort doesn't seem to agree. Trump has repeatedly tweeted things that have made journalists, who do hard work to safeguard our democracy, feel unsafe. This is a book about free...
Trump... Do you disagree with that? Do you disagree with the idea that journalists work to keep democracy safe? If so, then what is it you like about Tucker Carlson? Isn't he meant to be a journalist? And like, fucking, it's not just that he made journalists feel unsafe. Journalists head into all sorts of circumstances where they feel unsafe. They'll go into war zones and shit. The thing is, he said that they're the enemy of the people, which encourages his meathead fan base to go attack them. Tends to happen when the president calls someone an enemy of the people. No, I don't think Tucker Carlson is a journalist. It's just that he presents himself as one.
Freedom. And it's like, what is freedom? Well, exactly what society tells us it is. That's pretty straightforward. Freedom just means you get to do whatever you want to do.
And the idea...
How is that the left-wing position? Like, there's a joke in there, right? It's like the joke that a conservative should make there is... Freedom is when you can't say things I don't like on Twitter, right? That's the joke that he wants to make. But like, Jordan Peterson, if he was a leftist, he would say that freedom is whatever people say it is. Jordan Peterson constantly makes the argument that like hegemony is important, that we need to all agree on basic principles. That is a thing he says right now as a conservative. That isn't something he would say hypothetically as a leftist.
And the idea that the gulags were these terrible places when they were actually necessary to re-educate people is absolutely absurd. It's patently ridiculous.
If you want to know if you live in a totalitarian society, you ask yourself one question. Is the Supreme Court forcing nuns to buy abortion pills for you? If the answer is no, your president is Voldemort and you're living in a Handmaid's Tale. I disagree with that. Thank you so much.
Oof. Look how demonetized he is. Look at all these people who demonetized him, including Chinese communists. Dank pro-life memes. Oof. He's so hashtag canceled and hashtag demonetized. The wokest Oscar ceremony. YouTube radicalization.
I'm gonna watch a YouTube video.
Didn't teachers say that YouTube turns kids into right-wing Nazis?
No, there was a peer-reviewed article that demonstrated how YouTube funnels people towards far-right content. It's well established. I mean, yeah, it's pretty much it, right? Like, you know what? He's got it. That is how I think YouTube works. It's literally, if anyone watches a video with Hitler in it, they just become a Nazi. It's not that they are led down the radicalization pipeline by the guys that you portrayed as leftists in your last video. Why do leftists not have top eyelids? They do. But only when they're like laid back and relaxed, which they never are because they're screeching feminists. Jordan Peterson's a Red Skull. Let's find out about this. It's got it.
Well. If it wasn't Captain America, all caught up in my trap. What kind of...
Can we talk about how bad a Jordan Peterson this is? Jordan Peterson is the easiest person in the world to do an impersonation of. It's like, anyone can do a Jordan Peterson voice and anyone can do a Dr. Claw voice.
Sick plot are you hatching? I'm going to tell kids to clean their rooms and make 5-year plans. Just like Hitler. I've already...
Do you think that's what Ta-Nehisi Coates was criticizing about Jordan Peterson? Do you think the issue that people take with Jordan Peterson is that he tells people to clean their rooms? Or is it more to do with the fact that he says things like, women can't... we don't understand the effects of women in the workplace yet, or that men are fundamentally incapable of not wanting to fuck women in the workplace and it's a distraction, when he talks about like how the government is going to force you to use people's pronouns, and that's demonstrably not true, and no one has been arrested yet under Bill C-16. Still waiting on that.
Brainwashed my first subject. I've cleaned my room and repaired my relationship with my father.
Yeah, that's when I think of people that get really into Jordan Peterson, is they always end up fixing their interpersonal relationships. They always end up they always end up closer to the people around them. That's my experience with them.
No, you're actually kind of helping people, huh? Clean your room. Accept your responsibilities. Stop blaming everyone else for your problems. You're right. I'm gonna clean my room.
But what happens if someone, for example, is responsible for your problems? Like, just for example, if you're in an abusive relationship, is it then must you then turn that inwards and say, oh, it's my responsibility to fix that? I exist in a complete vacuum.
Room and repair my relationship with my father. Yeah. Hello? Dad?
Not so fast. We're here to stop you, Red Skull.
Guys, wait. Red Skull's lectures are actually really interesting. You should listen to this. It's like you have all these...
So let's just... Let's just go ahead and... see what he had the Red Skull actually say. Carl Luger's genius, the feminist trap. Jordan Peterson does criticize feminism quite a bit. Hold on, I want to see the actual panels. What has happened to the men of the world is truly one of the great tragedies of our time. This is the Red Skull speaking. Tell me if it sounds like anyone you know. Let me just get that. What has happened to the men of the world is truly one of the great tragedies of our time. Once the American man was a conqueror. Tell me you can't hear Jordan Peterson's voice saying this. But now he's a caretaker. What has happened to the men of the world is truly one of the great tragedies of our time. Once the American man was a conqueror. Now he is but a caretaker. And a caretaker of what? He stands for some amorphous dream, a dream of nothing. But what I offer you is more than just some petty dream, more than a life of tending the hearth. No more shall women be summoned to fight your battles. I offer steel for your spine and iron for your gut. I offer you the sword of manhood. So it seems to me like Ta-Nehisi Coates isn't criticizing that Jordan Peterson gets people to clean their rooms. That's fine. It's in fact all of the stuff he says about how we must reclaim the primordial masculine and how we're feminizing people and all this pseudo mystical Nazi crap is actually that's the thing that he's criticizing. It seems to me.
People who think existence is corrupt and that the West is a tyrannical patriarchy. It's absurd.
Hulk, smash patriarchy!
No! Hulk no smash patriarchy. Hulk smash own character flaws and set life in order if Hulk want to make anything of Hulk's self.
Okay, but like, again, if you have like if you can't criticize society, then why are you criticizing the way that everybody's living their lives? Why is that okay? You cannot self-actualize your way out of patriarchy. Like it's the whole idea is that there are forces more powerful than you are that are directly harming you. And that in order to self-actualize, in order for someone to take responsibility for their own life, in order for someone to be able to do the things that they need to do to make their life better, those systems have to be removed. It is fundamentally dishonest to just go, oh, no. Just fix your own life and everything will be fine. No, it won't. Like, are we going to tell people, in countries where women aren't allowed to drive that they just well, clean your room and don't worry about getting to drive. It's not important. Like, do you see how absurd that sounds when you frame it that way?
Hulk, have own preconception smashed. Hulk, call Dad.
Where can we see your lectures?
And you think you understand yourself, but you can't. It's like you're far too complex for that. What are you? You're a chimpanzee full of snakes.
Chimpanzee full of...
It's like, so in your cartoon, what you've done, you see, is you've taken the literal Nazi, the Red Skull, the symbol of pure Nazism, and you've made him right about everything, and all of the Avengers show up and they're like, hey, this Nazi's got some pretty good idea. You know, maybe if they listen to this Red Skull, maybe if they listen to him, maybe they'd learn something and call their dads.
Snakes.
Hey folks, thank you so much for watching.
Oh my god, he's so demonetized. I can't handle how demonetized he is. I can't handle it. Yeah, that's a good point, actually. Hulk's dad was a horrible abuser. Hulk's dad would beat the shit out of him, and that's why he formed the persona of the Hulk. So he should just call him, repair his relationship with him, just let that go? Is that the new canon? That's been the canon since like the 70s. Like, Iron Man's dad was also abusive, and he like abandoned him. At least in the movies, when he was played by Madman. I don't know about Captain America's dad. Daddy issues were in vogue in superhero comics for a while. I mean, it makes sense, right? I mean, there's soap operas, so you would anything that can be drama, you would eventually explore. Notice how Spider-Man didn't call anyone? Ooh. Spider-Man had to learn from Jordan Peterson to take responsibility for himself. In fact, there's a cartoon. You have Jordan Peterson saying, don't worry about changing society. Simply take responsibility, take care of your own life, and society will take care of itself. And then you have Spider-Man go, yeah, you know what? That makes a lot of sense, Jordan Peterson. I'm going to take that to heart. And then he's walking out, and there's a guy robbing somebody, and Spider-Man's like, sorry, I'm taking responsibility for my own life. Hard cut to Uncle Ben dead, and Spider-Man goes, oh, nuts. Ah, dang it. Oh, beans. Looks like there's actually some problems with trying to live my life as though I can only affect my own life and that my effect on the rest of the world doesn't matter. Cap's dad died in World War I. Okay, checks out. Am I slipping into Bobby Duke's voice? What do you mean slipping into? How would I slip into my friend and colleague Robert Duke's voice? Why have heroes at all? Society will fix itself. Good point. With great power comes cleaning your room. All right, I'm going to watch one more Freedom tune, and then we're going to open this up to just the discussion point of the stream. Ben and Jerry's wokest brand. Okay, so here's the fascist silver Ben and Jerry's. This is the tweet they made that set this guy off. The murder of Dante Wright is rooted in white supremacy and results from the international criminalization of black and brown communities. The system can't be reformed. It must be dismantled and a real system of public safety rebuilt from the ground up. Hashtag defund the police. I think we can all agree that there's nothing controversial or political about what is being said here. That's just straight up facts. They're saying hashtag facts. What would you even dispute about this? I don't even imagine how like the most hardcore conservative could find fault with any of what is being said here. Also, Freedom Tunes, you're not a police officer, so I don't understand why you personally feel attacked by this.
Welcome to Ben & Jerry's. I hate black people.
Excuse me?
Oh, all of the white employees are required to admit to our internalized racism store policy. Would you like some ice?
But having internalized racism does not mean that you hate people that you have internalized racism towards. It means that in a culture where some people are treated as lesser, you internalize ideas about people that you unconsciously perpetuate. In fact, the very problem of it is that you don't have to hate people to do it. This is what the term means. This is the thing they complain about, like, oh, you call everyone you don't like racist. Someone who has internalized racism isn't necessarily racist in that sense. Someone with internalized racism is someone who has just not confronted racism within them. It doesn't mean that they're a hateful, bigoted person. It means that they've just absorbed the background radiation of racism in society.
Ice cream created from ingredients the West procured through violent colonization?
I guess?
Yeah, I bet you would, you piece of shit. We have chocolate ally and vanilla guilt.
Look, I just want some ice cream. Can we leave the politics out of this?
Well, when politics is a matter of life and death.
Why doesn't she just leave Ben and Jerry's or go get ice cream somewhere else? Can we leave the politics out of it? I came into in this world, Ben and Jerry's, they lecture you whenever you go in there. But I went in there to get ice cream anyway. Like,
For millions of marginalized people, we as the privileged kind of have an obligation not to ignore it, don't we?
yeah.
I'll take vanilla guilt.
Of course you want the white flavor.
I knew it. Chocolate. I'll take chocolate.
Because when you see anything brown, your first instinct is to exploit and consume it. Excellent choice.
I'm leaving.
See, like, the thing is, right? Like, why would I even bother? Why even bother? It's.
Did I mention that as a socialist franchise, we've made all of our ice cream free?
I will stay.
Boop-a-doop-a-doop. All of the world's cocoa beans were obtained by exploiting the Native Americans who we killed. All right, here is your ice cream cone.
You've got to be kidding me.
Look, we just want our product to match our ideology.
Yo, like, for real though, there is no amount of scolding that I would not withstand for a free ice cream cone. Like, when she's like, oh, you gotta be kidding me. I'd be like, yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, totally. I'm the, whatever you say. Give me the ice cream, please.
Well, it's empty.
So is our worldview.
Hey, folks, thank you so much for watching.
So he agrees that his own worldview is empty. Oh, good stuff. Good stuff. To be fair, Ben & Jerry's on social media does embody that cringy liberal identity politics bullshit. Yeah, but that is not what he's criticizing, right? He's not criticizing them for being disingenuous. He's criticizing them for having the audacity to believe that racism exists. Like, it's one thing, like for example, a way you could criticize Ben & Jerry's in a way that made sense, that called out their hypocrisy, is you have her come in and say, like, I'll have an ice cream, and he says all of his stuff, like, oh, you're an oppressor and everybody's racist, and we at Ben & Jerry's aren't like that. And then you have her go, oh, well, how many of your executives are people of color? And then you have the cashier just kind of go, I don't, that's, you could do it that way. Instead of just making it as self-evidently ridiculous to acknowledge that, like, chocolate production is mostly done by slaves. Like, it's, boy, why did I just want to enjoy my ice cream? And they keep bringing up that there's all these problems in the world instead of letting me numbly ignore them. You'd make a pretty good chud. The thing is because I listen when chuds talk so that I can understand their worldview, right? I listen to them to see, do I agree with what this person is saying? Does what they're saying stand up to scrutiny? And it turns out that it doesn't for me. And that leads me to my political opinions. They don't do that. They can't look into what their opponents actually believe, because if they did, they wouldn't be able to believe the bullshit that they believe. But that's it for the libertarians and ANCAPs. That's about all I can put in my body today of pure, unfiltered ANCAP, unregulated chemicals. I want to read out the messages that I've missed from people. These are from last week. Refresh. Pretty sure internalized oppression refers to someone internalizing their own oppression / stigmas about their own identity, and what they're trying to talk about is implicit bias. Yes, I always get these two terms confused. Thank you for that correction. That is actually a very salient point. So I retract what I said. That is correct. I always make this mistake. I will endeavor to do better. Love from Louisville. It's still a radioactive waste pit of a hellscape here, but you're a breath of fresh air. What do you, it's radioactive? I assume you're speaking figuratively. I found this $5 when your JPD impression made me clean my room. You found $5 digital dollars? Digital Canadian dollars? Any advice on debunking Daily Mail to a family member? My mom thinks BLM and Antifa are terrorist groups who did January 6th. cites Tucker Carlson and Daily Mail. I mean, you could literally take any of the people that were there, any of the people that, actively organized it and look at what they say about Antifa. You can look at Nick Fuentes was there. What do you think that fool says about Antifa? What do you think he has to say about BLM? I recommend to your attention Larry Elder. Is this a libertarian chud? Thanks for the slime. You're welcome. Hello Kitty Bebop. Excellent username. Would you ever do another makeup video like your cat eye / resting dream workspace video? I might. Everybody requests them. Nobody watches them. I feel like it'd be a lot easier to make the argument of anarcho-capitalism as anarchism because of egoist anarchy generally being accepted. But Proudhon makes zero sense to me, lol. Presumably he would have gotten to Stirner at some point, but we stopped watching halfway through. Banana, thank you, Michael Tanguay. Why is he so keen for this guy to agree with him? Just say you disagree and that other long dead guy is right about how best to do anarchism. He's a liar. It's why. Thanks for being great. This guy has clearly studied hard. Do you think his viewpoint is the result of confirmation bias or malice? Confirmation bias. Absolutely. And also like this type of literalism with which people read these texts, like so much of his argument strains. It comes from a misunderstanding of what these philosophers meant by the word property, right? He is taking the word property to mean literally the exact same thing as what he considers property, like you owning a store, you owning a home, you owning your toothbrush. Proudhon, in fact, in some of the quotations that he quoted, in some of the quotations that he put on screen, talks about how he refers to property as the exploitation of labor by the capital class. Like, in that sense, if he says that property is theft and property is liberty, what he's saying is that it's theft because the maintenance of it, the exploitation, that's theft from working people, and to then return that power to working people is to liberate them. That's how he resolves that contradiction. Man uploads video to prove his own illiteracy and the failure of the school system he was in. Again, I don't think this guy is illiterate, and I kind of balk at the idea of illiteracy being used as an insult. He's probably much smarter than the average person. Libertarianism is not an ideology for dumbos. It's usually like gifted kids who want an ideology that allows them to argue with people. And that's, I think, the main draw of libertarianism for many of such people, particularly dudes. It's this idea that, like, I've got an ideological position that will never come into practice, so that I always have an excuse to play devil's advocate. I'm always in opposition to everyone else. I get to constantly lecture people and tell them why they're wrong. Aha, thought slime. Anarchists don't believe in having government, therefore nothing can have legal privilege because there are no laws. Wait, don't look at the hierarchy required to maintain capitalism. And the legal privilege is required to... if no one can have legal privileges, how then are we to protect private property? I got the Pequi Ghost Pepper chips you mentioned, and they got some serious kick to them, though Mad Dog 357 sauce was much hotter, to be honest. Yeah, there's plenty of hot sauces that are hotter than these chips. I'm talking about their hotness purely in terms of chips. They're the hottest chips I've ever had. I've been absolutely binging your videos this last month. You're radicalizing me, bud, and I think I like it. You're about to lose control. And then gain control. Over your own labor. It's been hi, it's my birthday tomorrow. Thanks for being a slimy Matt. Happy birthday, Greg. Greg's here. It's Greg. Hey, Think Thonk. You ever look into Max Stirner? As I've often said about Max Stirner, everything he says sounds like the exact opposite of what I believe. But in practice, everyone who believes in egoism seems pretty chill. So I got no beef. I don't know what this guy is smoking, but I want some. No, you don't. You don't. You don't want libertarian drugs because they're never going to be tested. They're never going to be safe. They're going to be full of cadmium. This man about to use subjectivity to defend objectivism. Oop. Pretty much. Once again, thank you for the content. Can't watch the stream tonight, but I'm sure it will be hot fire. It wasn't. Words are just mouth sounds is the linguistic version if we live in a society. If you think about it, this guy is the Joker. I think it's a reference to the Spring of Nations and the 1848 liberal revolutions. Victor Conway, you win the prize. You're smarter than I. Can you say Damanis for manis? Damanis. Smooch? Don't smooch me. I'm married. Glad to be in the best libertarian stream on YouTube? Damn right. Except other libertarian content creators with whom we're all equal. We're all the same, of equal commiserate quality. A neo-Nazi group is accumulating on my college campus. I reported them to ADL and Torch Antifa. Any other tips? I'm carrying pepper spray. LOL, not fun. So you definitely, if you're looking for a tactic that will put you in little danger, but can be used to disrupt them, anytime they meet anywhere to do anything, play Disney music. And that means that they can't use any of their footage for propaganda. If they put up flyers, paper over them. If you take any of their flyers down, be careful because they sometimes hide razor blades behind them. So if you're going to take down a Nazi flyer, please do it with your keys, not with your fingernails. Isn't Ryan Long's Wokes versus Racist video just criticizing the same horseshoe theory the online left is starting to realize? Not a fan of Ryan, though. It isn't criticizing it. It is agreeing with it. It is taking it for granted. It is... I'll agree that there's a contingent of left-wingers who increasingly believe it, and they're the worst scum on the planet, and they have no place in our movement. I was joking, LMAO, but yeah, we were occupied by the feds after the cops murdered Breonna Taylor, and half the city pretends last year didn't happen. Yeah. It's wild that, like, I don't know, it just feels like the air being let out of a balloon after Derek Chauvin was arrested. It's like it all just kind of hits you, like how big a problem this is and like how much work was put into making change. And it feels like all of the political will and all of the fighting for that resulted in one person being held accountable. And not really my place, but thoughts on knowing better? I don't want to start drama where it's not necessary, but he's the guy who started me on the path to find you after his public housing collab with Do Not Eat 01. I got no problem with knowing better. I will say that his videos on Columbus were regrettable, and I think Bad Empanada did a pretty good job of exposing that. And other than that, like he's always been nice to me. I don't really watch a lot of his videos, so I can't say like what his thing is like in general, but like those videos sure sucked. I'm going to take a quick bio break, and then I will be back in but a moment. I'm not seeing hashtag piss gangs in chat, and I'm very disappointed in everybody. I see there was discussion over whether it was a pee or a poop. It was indeed a piss. Now you know. What are my thoughts on Putin? Not a fan. I know, it makes me a fake Canadian. It's okay, because Canada's a fake country. Like, look, you've already got the perfect food, French fries. It cannot be meaningfully improved. Did I wash my hands? Of course I did. 2 happy birthdays with soap and water. It's not my first day pissing. And play the music, please. There we go. There are no French fries. You know what I'm talking about. Freedom fries. My friend called her bottom surgery yeet the meat. You know what? We still got this. I just realized we still got the gain set super high. Sorry about that. Sorry if that blew out your earballs. Yeet the meat is very funny. Do I still skate? Occasionally, if I need to get somewhere. Not a lot of places to go right now. Boy, I'm not looking forward to when chat catches up to when that music was super loud. What do I think about the Knowing Better collab with Bay Area ML, who is a genocide denier and a fucking corporate lawyer? So is this the one? I thought this was historically that it turned out was a corporate lawyer, but not only is she a corporate lawyer, she is specifically in biomedical patents. So the thing she specifically does is like defend corporations' right to have patents on life-saving medication, and we're all kind of living in the consequences of that. Not a big fan, but look. If I haven't watched whatever video they made together, and I don't know why he chose to work with her. So I don't know. I'm not gonna be mad at him in some sort of sequence. Just came in again to apologize for any and all abuse you've received from Fuentes' fans. I requested a video of him and feel partially responsible. Allow me to absolve you of any responsibility. That has nothing to do with you. I would have done a video on him eventually anyway. And for the record, although that they have brigaded my video and have now put 3,000 dislikes on it, I'm not reading their comments. I don't give a shit. They're not getting it. They're not getting me. Don't worry about it. Just wanted to make sure you looked at my previous super chat. Let's see what I missed. I didn't mean to refresh this window. I meant to refresh this window. Greetings from Texas. Please send help. I have nothing to send. What do you think of the rise of deepfakes and how this dude used the tech to impose Tom Cruise's face onto him? And you can also use work gloves that you can get at Home Depot to tear down posters. I would recommend using your keys, though. I think deepfakes are a pretty terrifying technology that can be used very maliciously, and it's something I think we should all be kind of concerned about. I'm hoping that with the rise of deepfakes, we also conversely develop technology to identify them. And so that that could be boasting too much of my hope in technology. I don't know. It's very scary. We're entering into a future where video evidence might not be trustworthy anymore. I can't think of anything you can use, anything good you can use deepfakes for. Putting Luke Skywalker back in The Mandalorian. Just got my second vaccination today and planning for a movie day tomorrow. Any good and weird movies to recommend? Good and weird? I would recommend Goki and The Body Snatcher from Hell. Is Ricky-O, The Story of Ricky. There you go. That's 2. Ricky-O, The Story of Ricky is super violent, though, so if you're not into that, maybe not that one. But it's also hilariously violent. If you've ever seen on the Daily Show, they would have a clip where like a guy punched through another guy's head. That's from Ricky-O, The Story of Ricky. Do I still prefer he, him pronouns? Sure. I have given up. I have let go of pronouns. Let the pronouns come to me. Let them come to me. I care not. And I will tell you it's partially motivated by the fact that anytime I declare a preference, I get people using that to like talk down to other people on Twitter, and I just don't like that. Because it's like this, I am not upset by someone using the wrong pronouns. I am very upset by someone being rude to someone on my behalf. So, yeah. Keep up the good work. Your videos and streams are always a pleasure. Thank you. Pronouns. I deeply apologize for suggesting Freedom Tunes. No one deserves that kind of toxic exposure. No, you saved the stream. Use deepfakes to swap the faces back and face off. No, there's a movie. Wait, TS didn't recommend Psycho Goreman? If you haven't watched Psycho Goreman yet, you don't deserve to watch it. You still have to. It's still required. But if you have not yet watched it, then frankly, you know, it's above you. How Acquire? I'm pretty sure it's on Shudder. You could get a free month of Shudder if they fucking sponsored Scaredy Cats, but they're cowards and they won't do it. How ironic that they watch all these scary movies, but they're too afraid to give me a promo code. My favorite biome in Minecraft? Dark Oak Forest. It's because I like Dark Oak and it's a good place to get it. Use deepfakes to put Tucker Carlson's face onto Patrick Bateman from American Psycho. I saw in Lance's chat today that someone was going to do that. So, looks like that's happening. Was it you that said that? Because if so, you're just promoting your own thing that you're doing. I caught you. Tucker Carlson is already the star of American Psycho? No, it's Christian Bale. You should put Bobby Duke on the phone. I'm sure he'd convince Shudder. He's trying. He's working on it. No, it's Patrick Bateman. Patrick Bateman is the name of the character that Batman plays. Make Bobby Duke the main character. No, I don't want to update JavaScript. Sorry, not JavaScript, Java. Make Bobby Duke the main character of all movies ever. All movies? All movies? And get rid of Tilda Swinton? I think not. I saw the words Tucker Carlson and American Psycho and read it as put Tucker Carlson into Psycho Goreman. I know exactly which character I'd want him to be. It's one of the street toughs that PG gets in the beginning. You've discussed Mandy before. Any thoughts on Cosmatos' other movie, Beyond the Black Rainbow? Still have not watched it, but it's like perpetually on the list. Bobby Duke would make a great Thanos. I agree. If Dave Thanos isn't down to continue the role, then Bobby Duke could definitely take it up. You know, like, hey, I got all the Infinity Stones. What did it cost me? Nothing much, you know, just everything. I want to see Bobby Duke in Titanic. I bet the drawing of his tits would be great. If Bobby Duke were going to be in Titanic, he would play the unbreakable Molly Brown. What ideology best describes Batman? He's a liberal technocrat, in my opinion. Have I seen The Color Purple with Nick Cage? I think you mean The Color Out of Space. The Color Purple is a very different movie. I have seen it. I reviewed it on Scaredy Cats. It is not a Mandy. There's a dude called Dave Thanos. Yeah, he played Thanos in the movie Thanos and the Avengers Part 2 Infinity Games. Bobby Duke in Space Odyssey? Bobby Duke. He would be Hell 9000, I assume is what you meant. Open the pod bay doors, Bobby. Hey, Maddie, I can't do that. I was thinking about Batman the other day. What would his D&D alignment be? Can you be chaotic lawful? So no, you can't. But you can be lawful neutral. But there's actually like an alignment chart where it's all Batman. Like each square is Batman. Bobby just calls all of the characters in any movie Maddie. I'm assuming I'm playing opposite him. Who the heck is Bobby Duke? He's the star of the channel. How do you not know Bobby Duke? He's the most famous Babadook in the world, aside from one other one. I don't have the clout to get roles alongside Bobby. Maybe not, but I've got an amazing agent. What alignment is Captain America? I mean, it's pretty much the definition of lawful good, right? See, here's the thing. If people are going to go, Captain America breaks the law, Batman breaks the law. Here's the thing. Lawful in D&D just means that you live up to a code. It doesn't necessarily mean that you are on the side of the literal law. Matt, clarify what Scaredy Cats is. As a big fan, it disturbs me to see many people in chat not knowing what it is. Scaredy Cats is a secondary channel that I do. It's about horror movies, and new videos come out on Tuesdays at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can find it at youtube.com/scaredycatstv. The link is under my face right now. That's a good point. You can see it right here. Click on it. It won't do anything, but you can click on it. When's the inevitable Scaredy Cats on Shin Godzilla? I don't really have anything to say about Shin Godzilla other than that it's very good. Like, it's like to me, talking about Shin Godzilla would be like a worse version of watching it, because I would just be like, oh, here's what this movie talks about. It's like you could just watch the movie. Any news on the Mega Slime Entertainment Zone? Still figuring stuff out. Am I doing the Leprechaun franchise? No, because you have to understand that I know that we have a history, but they're bad movies. The Leprechaun movies are bad, and they're not fun to watch, with the sole exception of Leprechaun in Space. People think Leprechaun in the Hood is the funniest one. I don't think it's surprising that the Leprechaun can go to the Hood. Anyone can. It's not an impressive thing to do. To go to space, that's an environment where I do not expect to see the Leprechaun. This is my thoughts on Multiple Maniacs and Pink Flamingos. I have not seen either, to be honest. I have never seen a movie by, what's-his-face, John Waters. I understand their importance in, like, cinema history. Are they, like, still, like, enjoyable to watch at all? Because they did not give me the impression that they are. Is it the type of thing that I just have to see so that I, like, understand, like, that time? Or is it, like, something that is still, like, it holds up? All I know about Pink Flamingos is that Divine eats dog shit in it. Thought Slime canceled over controversial Leprechaun in Space opinion. I do not find the idea of Leprechaun in the Hood funny on a fundamental level. I do not understand the joke. I don't get it. Because why shouldn't he be there? Like, if it's a Leprechaun in the modern day, like, that's a place that exists in the modern day. Why is that more surprising than him being anywhere else? Like, I don't get it. I don't understand why it's funny. I really don't. Matt, look at my art challenge. Where can I find said art? I accept your challenge. Leprechaun series is fucked and boring? Pretty much, yeah. Look, any interest I might have had in the Leprechaun franchise went out the window with the Leprechaun rap. Because, look, rapping Leprechaun, that's a funny premise. Show me the Leprechaun rapping. I want to see that. That sounds funny. It's so fucking lazy. When I could make a better rap than the one in the movie, you fucked up. Like, if he's already been to the Hood, why did you put him back in the Hood? There's so many funny environments you could put the Leprechaun in. Leprechaun at the Olympics. Hey, Matt, can you look at my art? I already said I would. I accepted your challenge, Jason. Where am I to find it? Leprechaun at an anime convention. There's the movie. And he's into it. He likes it. There's the movie. I think Jason has some art for you. Show me the art. Matt, who is in Paris? What? There are thousands of people in Gay Paris. Leprechaun in World War II. There you go. Leprechaun versus an evil genie. Not the Wishmaster. He doesn't deserve it. Leprechaun goes to the Capitol riots. There's a movie. Leprechaun goes to CPAC. Yeah. Leprechaun versus Predator. There's a movie. But like, that's not that much different than Leprechaun Goes to Space. Like he went to space already. I didn't hear you accept my challenge. My Twitter is @JazzWhacker. Jacewacker. All right. I'm looking. Okay. Hard to tell which art is yours at a glance. You've got a website. Perfect. Portfolio. Oh, that's neat. Hold on. Let me get this on camera. You gonna let me do this? You gonna let me do this, Chrome? Where's that window? I have so many Chrome windows open right now. Okay. Chrome, I need you to cooperate with me. There we go. There's a art right there. Commission this person, all of ye who need art. So I command. Leprechaun versus Punisher, I think, would be good. Because the Punisher already fought Archie. Leprechaun and Sonic at the Olympic Games. Did Archie win? No, in the end, they overcame their differences, and there was a sequel promised where Jughead would fight the X-Men. And me saying it like that, it sounds like it's a joke, but it is very much the plot of the comic book Archie versus the Punisher. Can I debunk this next week? National Anarchism, an explanation. That sounds like kind of a drag, to be honest. Leprechaun Civil War, he fights another slightly more evil leprechaun. You fucked up, because what he should fight the leprechaun from Leprechaun Origins, played by Hornswoggle. You have original Flav Leprechaun versus Hornswoggle Leprechaun. Have them do battle? No, there's the movie. Teams up with Hornswoggle? I don't think they'd get along. There can only be one alpha leprechaun. Played by, yeah, the actor is Hornswoggle from the WWE. I don't know the actor, I don't know his name, but I know his in WWE it's called Hornswoggle. Do I get a very lesbian haircut or no? I need woman? I think you know the answer in your heart. I think you already know what needs must be done. Given the Saw sequel reboot, there are 3 leprechauns. Incorrect. The reboot is meant to be a direct sequel to Leprechaun 1. Ergo, it is a new interpretation of the Warwick Davis Leprechaun, not a new iteration of the Leprechaun. Now, you could argue that the different Leprechauns in the original franchise are not the same character, given that they have different weaknesses. But I think that's just trying to impose the continuity on these films that they were never meant to have. I respect the director's vision. This is too much Leprechaun lore? If you say so. I only saw the one where his weakness was untied laces. I mean, that's like a weakness for everybody. Anybody can be hurt by untied laces because you can trip on them. It's not just the leprechaun thing, you know? It was Dirty Shoes, yeah. Have I watched Adam Neely's Music Theory and White Supremacy? It really gets to the heart of Boingo Shebing Bop's Black Music is Not Music takes. Highly recommended even if you're not a musician. I have watched it, actually. But also, like, I already knew that. I wouldn't have been able to articulate it like he does, obviously. I didn't know the information he knows. But I didn't need that video to tell me that Bingo Sheboingo's takes on rap music are ridiculous. Bingo Sheboingo is a creative distortion. I said that in a video like 2 years ago, I think. I'm disappointed no one said My Leprechaun Academia. Slime hot tub? First of all, where am I going to get a hot tub to fit in this apartment? It simply is unfeasible. Secondly, you think I'm going to put pictures of my human body on the internet for everyone to see? No, I have more respect for all of you than that. You have better people to look at in hot tubs. I saw someone write Leprechaun Evergarden, and I did think Leprechaun Everdeen, which gives me an amazing idea for a fanfiction. What about the body positivity of it all? It has long been my position, and it is a consistent position that I will maintain, that everyone should feel positive about their body, except me in particular. That has been my position from the beginning. It will remain my position. I am the sole exception, and it's necessary that I be the exception because the exception proves the rule. Were I not to be negative about my body, then there would be nothing to compare against. And so I serve as the exception. I serve as the yardstick by which other people can be measured. Best bastardized version of Ben Shapiro? I'm partial to Bingus Shaboingus. But I said that, so I don't know. Maybe that's conceited. Someone just wrote Benedict Cumberbatch as a comment, and I'm like, all right, indeed, Benedict Cumberbatch. Oh, I see. That's a bastardization of Ben Shapiro's name, Benedict Cumberbatch. He is kind of like an inverse Ben Shapiro in many ways. Ben Shapiro is very good. Like a magic spell that causes benches to appear. Ben Shapiro! I see now we've moved on to Benedict Cumberbatch names. Bong Shapiroid. I don't know. Bingus Shaboingus just gets me. It's one of my favorite jokes that I've made. Have I seen Day in the Life of Ben Shapiro? I am not making the joke I want to make. It's too mean. Check my Twitter DMs challenge. I accept your challenge. Let's see. Go die cuck. You're a stupid cuck. What a big cuck you are. Aha. Okay, it's another one of your drawings. Am I shadow banned? Leprechaun Klansman directed by Spike McLee. No, he's just, I'm not gonna comment on all of the Leprechaun parodies happening in chat. There's a lot of them. People have a lot of Leprechaun ideas. I had a Sennheiser headset, but it got borked. I got this on sale last Christmas. Have I seen Nick Lutzko's Gremlin song? It's really good. I think we need a new Gremlins movie. Can I link it? I think you would like it. I'm a huge fan of Nick Lutzko. He is amazing. He has been a bright spot this year. For those that don't know, Ben Lutzko is the guy that did the official theme to Spirit Halloween. But yeah, he's great. I went to school with Nick Fuentes, F in the chat, boys. There's a lot of people I'm learning that went to school with Nick Fuentes. Because I get a lot of messages from people saying they went to school with Nick Fuentes. What? Ben Shigeru Miyamoto. But to circle back to Ben Shigeru, I'm picturing like Goro the Shokan Prince from Mortal Kombat. That could be a good one to Photoshop. Say for the sake of argument that I jump out of this screen and then I come down and I land on you. And then I grab you with two arms and punch you with the other two. Etc., etc. It's a joke that writes itself. He's the guy that did the Alex Jones rants as an indie folk song? Yeah. Like, everything he does is amazing. Ben Sub-Zero. Ben Sub-Zero would defend the Lin Kuei against charges of brutality. There's no evidence that they were responsible for the destruction of the Shirai Ryu. He would say, "This is not a brutality. This is a fatality." That's a quote from Mortal Kombat 4. That's Jax speaking to Reiko. "You can't do this. This is police brutality. This is not a brutality. It is a fatality." And he drops him, and then he goes, "Yakukukukuzi!" He makes the weirdest fucking noise. "Jax, I thought you were, what, dead? Like my partner you just threw off a cliff?" I would unironically love if you did a leftist reading the Mortal Kombat lore. Critical support for Earthrealm and its struggle against outworld imperialism. Is the new MK movie any good? Any good is a wide target. It is some good, mostly not though. There's a lot of fun stuff in it. It's not as good as the 95 movie, in my opinion. That could be because it's like a movie that is like deeply ingrained in me. It's, you know how everybody has that movie they watched over and over as a kid? For me, that was Mortal Kombat. But he's fine. Didn't make me mad. I didn't like the main character. I thought that was an unnecessary inclusion. I think most of the returning characters are a downgrade from their version in the 95 movie. Like, particularly Liu Kang. Liu Kang is shockingly bad. Is it better or worse than Mortal Kombat Annihilation? It's better than Mortal Kombat Annihilation, but it's not really fair to compare them. Kano and Sonya are great. I don't think Sonya's as good as the original. And Kano doesn't act like Kano at all. Like, he's great in the movie, but it's like, I don't know, that's not really Kano. I did love that they did the leg sweep spam joke, though. That was the first bit of fan service that genuinely surprised me. And I liked how many of the catchphrases they worked in. But I have no idea why they didn't make it a Mortal Kombat tournament. That's very strange to me. Christopher Lambert was perfect for Raiden. This is the thing, you know, Dead Meat recently did a kill count of the original Mortal Kombat, and he complained about Christopher Lambert's Raiden. I fucking love Christopher Lambert's Raiden. He's fantastic. He brings such a joie de vivre to that character. He makes that movie. Like, he's fun. He's so fun. He's great. And the new Raiden's just boring. Like, he's a legitimately good martial artist that they never let fight in the movie. Yo, Goat and Goblin. I don't know whether it's Goat or Goblin in chat. The name implies both, but I doubt that they sit at a computer at the same time typing out, each using one hand. ACAB Sonya. Sonya's not a cop. She is a special forces soldier. And the special forces in the Mortal Kombat universe is not the United States Special Forces. It's like a fictional military composed of like all world governments. Lambert can't speak a lick of English by choice and he steals it. Lambert can speak English. He is blind though. It's like that never comes up. When people talk about Christopher Lambert, people don't even know he's blind. Like literally blind. And he's like that good in movies. Google it. Google it. Like since before Highlander? I don't know. I know he was blind by the time of Mortal Kombat. Christopher Lambert blind. Like not fully blind. He is like he has vision that is like, I don't want to say bad. I feel like bad is not the right way to put it, but like he has severe enough myopia that it is considered legal blindness. Mortal Kombat X had leprechauns, and now there's Mortal Kombat Cinematic Universe. I recently played through Oh no, I played Mortal Kombat 11. There was no leprechauns in that one. Visually impaired? I'm told that blind is the preferred terminology. Damn, my man riding a motorcycle in Beowulf, blind as fuck. I just want to kiss you with consent, of course. First of all, I'm married. Even if I weren't, it's not an appropriate comment. Well, let's not. Who's my Mortal Kombat main? I didn't really play it enough to develop a main, but I think the person that was most fun to play as was Fujin. Because Fujin has a move where he just runs across the top of the screen and there's nothing you can do about it. And it makes him super annoying for the other players. And of course, you can play as freaking RoboCop in Mortal Kombat 11. Oh, also, Shiva was fun to play too. And Spawn, yeah. And the Joke Man from Batman. All I know about Mortal Kombat 11 is that Shiva makes people cry. Why? Like, her story was she got betrayed by Sindel, but like, well, in the DLC, but why does she make people cry? Wasn't Hellboy in a Mortal Kombat game? I believe he was in Mortal Kombat X. You can play as the 90s film stars too. Yeah, but it's bullshit because I bought the Ultimate Edition, which has all of the content, but that you still have to pay to get that. It's bullshit. How dare they call it the complete edition if you still have to buy shit? Also, they literally like just made Shang Tsung from the movie. He's just for most of the story, he's like old man Shang Tsung from Mortal Kombat 1. But then halfway through, he's like, now I'm the movie Shang Tsung, and I'm just going to act like that from now on, and it rules. She even makes quartering types cry because they made her extremely bulky in 11. You know, one thing I will say from Mortal Kombat 11 that really impressed me was they really walked back a lot of the bullshit that they had built up over the years of just like weird cheesecake with a K. Like Mortal Kombat 9, which is the last one I played, was fucking embarrassing. Like if anyone walked in the room, like it was just all of the women are in bikinis and all of the men are in full plate armor. But I like it. Mortal Kombat 11 did a really good job, I think, of not only having the women dress sensibly, but also like giving them interesting personalities. And like, this isn't just blue katana and red katana, and now they're doing things. And I thought that was great. Cheesecake already has a K, but it's a K in the beginning. Like Mortal Kombat style. Mortal Kombat 9 had the better roster, though. I'm pretty pleased with the Mortal Kombat 11 roster. There's really not a lot of additions I would make. Is cheesecake with a K spelled cheesecake or cheesecake? It's spelled cheesecake. It's to me, Mortal Kombat 11 feels like the first game where they're like, oh, maybe we could get women to play this game. No Ermac, no Kenshi, just sad. I care not for Ermac or Kenshi. I miss them not. MKOG had the best roster. SNES version, Sega doesn't count. The SNES version is the worst version of Mortal Kombat. It doesn't even have blood. No Reptile? That's true. Reptile, that's a good point. Reptile I would like to see added in. And Smoke, too, actually. I remember Mortal Kombat 3 on SNES being pretty brutal, was it not? Mortal Kombat 1 didn't have blood. And then the backlash against that was severe. I think Noob killed Smoke to get his new edgy powers in this timeline. It doesn't matter. Everyone's killing everyone and they're always coming back. That's fine. You preferred Bloody Roar when you were a kid? Not even Primal Rage? Bloody Roar? Opinion on MK11 missing Takeda? I wouldn't say they were missing Takeda. Yeah, Killer Instinct was what I was thinking when I said Primal Rage. I don't know why. Primal Rage is a video game, but Killer Instinct is what I was thinking of. Imagine being good at fighting games. Oh, I am terrible at fighting games. And other video games. Clay Fighters was goated. Where did Clay Fighters go? Have you played it recently? It does not hold up. I loved Clay Fighters as a kid. It is not good. Though, to be fair, I can't remember the last time I played Clay Fighter 63 in a third Sculptor's Cut, which had Earthworm Jim and Boogerman from Boogerman: A Pick and Flick Adventure. But I did enjoy playing Balls 3D, so what do I know? Everyone enjoyed Balls 3D. That was one of the most popular video games of all time, and I will hear nothing to the contrary. All I remember about Balls 3D was that when I rented it, I also rented... my cousin owned a Sega Genesis, and I was with him. And we rented Balls 3D and Sonic and Knuckles. And we were so disappointed that you couldn't put Balls 3D in Sonic and Knuckles and play as Knuckles in Balls 3D. Because to a kid, you're just like, of course that would work. You can just play as Knuckles in every video game. Why couldn't you? What is Balls 3D? It was a fighting game where everyone was made out of 3D spheres. Earthworm Jim creator is a crazy right-winger these days. Oh, I know. It's heartbreaking. Earthworm Jim makes me sad every time I remember him because of that. I'm pretty sure Earthworm Jim was made by Hatsune Miku. You could totally play as Knuckleballs. My uncle works for Sega. Ah, I knew we did it wrong. Do we know if the creator of Boogerman from Boogerman: A Pick and Flick Adventure is a racist? Favorite Teen Titans? I'm really only familiar with the Teen Titans from the animated show from the early 2000s. I guess of them, I don't know, Raven, Earthworm Tim Pool. Get this person, get them an artist on this stat. Hatsune Miku is now the original creator of Earthworm Jim. Yeah, I read that somewhere. The correct answer is Young Justice, but that's not the Teen Titans. That's Baby's first Justice League. They're the Justice League Boy Scouts of America. I will personally find where Ed Boon lives and kiss him until he adds smoke into Mortal Kombat 11. Might take a while. I think they're done adding characters. Thoughts, Slime, what will you be canceled for in 20 years? The list is too long to get into right now. Just wait. Why are you being so impatient? Just wait. And you'll find out. Can I cancel you now? You're more than welcome. I would make so much money. I love how Cyborg just changed to a founding Justice League member after a while because it made no sense to have him on the B team. I don't think it's so much that it made no sense to have him on the B team. It's just that Warner Brothers is incredibly mercenary and weren't willing to really look into any of the other black superheroes in DC Comics. He was the only one that they felt had any name recognition, so they're like, yeah, throw him in there. That'll shut people up. And obviously they weren't going to get Black Lightning because at the time the rights were in dispute. I think now, unfortunately now, I believe DC Comics has the full rights to Black Lightning. Jon Stewart? Yeah, but see, if they do Jon Stewart, that means that they can't then have Hal Jordan or Kyle Rayner, or, from their point of view, it's like, oh, well, this is a favor we're doing for people, You have to look at it from like the mercenary perspective of a global corporation. It isn't about like actually picking a great black superhero and throwing them in. It's about like, well, we need people to shut up about this, so we'll throw someone in there, and this is the only one that we think has any name recognition. Thing about Static Shock is Static Shock was created because Dwayne McDuffie wanted to make an animated series about Black Lightning but couldn't get the rights because the guy who created Black Lightning expressly did not want DC Comics to have the rights to him. So he made up his own character of Static Shock. That's where that came from. Jaime Reyes needs his own movie. That would be great. I would love to see a Blue Beetle movie. And you could even pair him up with Booster Gold. I know that he's not the Blue Beetle that typically works with Booster Gold. I don't care. It'd be fun. Have I watched Invincible on Amazon? I didn't really like the comics, so I haven't watched the show, to be honest. If they wanted a black superhero in the movie, how about Green Lantern? The thing is, they wanted to be able to later put in the white Green Lantern that they like. They see that as like too big a property to give. So when I first heard of Black Lightning, I thought it was an adaptation of Static Shock. Bring back Ryan Reynolds, baby. There was a clip from the Green Lantern movie in the CW Crisis on Infinite Earths. If that helps. I personally, Mr. Terrific would have been great in the Justice League movie. Vixen, you could have done. Because black superhero movies never make money, like Black Panther was a total flop. Yeah, but the thing is that the people who run these companies are big racists. They're big racist guys. And they say racist stuff and they do racist things all the time. Black Vulcan was just Super Friends not wanting to pay royalties for Black Lightning. Yeah. Due to the Justice League cartoon, Jon Stewart is my default Green Lantern. Jon Stewart is the only interesting Green Lantern. He's the only one that has a personality. They could have made a less prolific superhero black like Marvel did. They could, yeah. Or, for argument's sake, Superman. Hal Jordan is a cop. All Green Lanterns are cops. They're space cops. It's based off the Lensman. It's all about space cops. Why didn't they just make Spider-Man black like Marvel did? I think it is canon in the DC universe that Spider-Man is black. How about Meteor Man? Now there's a movie. There's the movie that needs to get remade. Bring back Meteor Man, bring back Blank Man. bring back Steel and it has to be Shaq. It has to be. It must be Shaq. Have every character played by Shaq, actually. Are there any good animated superhero shows you recommend? Like all time or currently going? There's a bunch all time. Like obviously the whole DCAU, Batman the Animated Series, all the way through Justice League Unlimited. Spectacular Spider-Man, Young Justice. Will we ever get a Particle Man movie? I think he's going to make a post-credits appearance in the Triangle Man movie. Is Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. any good? Parts of it sure are. It has an amazing pivot in the first season that is legitimate. Like the first few episodes of that show are hot trash. But then you find out that there was a reason they were so bad. And it makes the rest of the show so much better to have it. So you can't even skip it. But yeah. The Shaq cinematic universe? Yeah. I say we all practice some consumer Shaqtivism and get Shaq in all of these movies. Shaq did political ads for Chris Christie and defended him closing down the beach and using it for himself. Wow, it sounds like a slam dunk. I don't care. Shaq is a giant man. We are beneath his notice. We cannot judge we are but ants to Shaq. He is beyond good and evil. Shaq owns a majority stake in Papa John's. Shaq is Papa now. Shaq always was Papa John. And they need to rename it. Oh my God, why am I having such trouble speaking today? They need to rename the franchise Papa Shaq's. Or the Pizza Shack? No, it's Papa Shaq's or nothing. Papa Shaq's or I walk. Yeah, have it be Shaq passing the torch to the next Steel. I agree that that's how they should do it, but the next Steel should also be Shaq. Where does Shaq fit in the Space Jam extended universe? I think he was kind of behind the scenes. Like he's more of a Shaqtical Forces type of guy. Like Gemini Man, but Shaq? Yes, precisely. There's not a single movie that could not be improved by putting Shaq in it. Prove me wrong. You ever played Barkley Shut Up and Jam? Are you referring to the original Barkley Shut Up and Jam or the far superior Barkley Shut Up and Jam Gaiden? Because I've played both. What was Karl Marx's position on femboys? It was long and incoherent. And had a lot to do with the price of coats for some reason. Do I have a favorite Ninja Turtle? You know I do. You know it's Mikey. You know it's Mikey. Why are you playing? You know my favorite Ninja Turtle is Michelangelo. Could you improve Kazam by putting Shaq in it? Yes. Right now, Kazam is Shaq. The kid should also be Shaq. Tell me that wouldn't be a better movie. Go ahead and try. Would Shaq improve Leprechaun in the Hood? Yeah. Imagine this. Middle of the Leprechaun rap, right? Those lazy backup singers are like, Lep in the Hood up to do no good. Shaq bursts through the wall, takes the Leprechaun, scrunches him up into a basketball, slam dunks him. Tell me you wouldn't be out of your chair hooting and hollering. Didn't Shaq do a rap in Kazam? Of course he did. Prove you wrong? Not a chance. Hashtag Shaq forever. This guy gets it. I think, like, if you can Shaq-tivate Shaq and put him in any movie, it's better. Would Shaq improve Cats? Is that a real question? Are you listening to yourself? Of course he would improve Cats. And he would play Scrimbleshanks. Beetlejuice, but with Shaq? Hell yes. I'd hoot, but would I holler? Oh, we got a tough guy over here. Thinks they're going to hoot, but not holler. I don't think so. Everybody says they're not going to holler until Shaq dunks the Leprechaun, and then they know. Shaqula. There you go. You're thinking outside the box, Bill Casey. I like this. Count Shaqula. Is it true that you are Shaq? I can confirm I am not Shaq, nor can I ever become Shaq. Shaq is every character in Hamilton? Yes! Now you're thinking. Godzilla vs. Kong ends up with Shaq falling out of the sky and beating both of them? Hell yeah. See, you get it, right? There's not a single movie that Shaq could not improve. Scream, Shaqula, scream. Shaqula and the Legend of the Seven Golden Vampires. Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Shaqskaban. There you go. The Shawshank Redemption would have been better, in my opinion. If he's not bigger, he's just normal size. He's pretty much as big as Godzilla anyway. Caddyshack, yes! Yes! The Love Shack? Yeah! Shack to the Future, yes! How Stella got her groove shack. I shack on your grave. It's like it just keeps going. Thought Shack. Yes, get me replaced with Shaq. Shacknado? Absolutely. Little Shack of Horrors? That's great. That's great. Do you now understand? The Spy Who Shacked Me? Incredible. You know, the only thing that could be funnier than this would be some jokes from the Bunnicula Fun Book. Unfortunately, I've ran out of jokes I've read all of the jokes from the Bunnicula Fun Book on stream. I can't read any more of them, unfortunately. Which is why I bought a new joke book. It's called Laugh Out Loud Jokes for Kids by Rob Elliott. That's the new book. And I'm going to read some of the jokes from it to you to close out the stream on a high note. Why did the robber wash his clothes before he ran away with the loot? He wanted to make a clean getaway. How does his skeleton call his friends? On the telebone. What is the richest kind of air? A millionaire. Feels like a billionaire would be richer. This book is out of date. Who keeps the ocean clean? The mermaid. Why did the Invisible Man turn down a job offer? Just couldn't see himself doing it. Hey, why did the skeleton drink 8 glasses of milk every day? Milk is good for the bones. That one's not so much a joke, but a premise. What did Johnny jump up and down before... Sorry. Why did Johnny jump up and down before he drank his juice? Why would Johnny do that? Well, you see, the carton said to shake well before drinking. What's a baby's favorite reptile? Do you think? Oh, you know what? This music is probably very distracting from the funny jokes. Let me fix that for you. Sorry about that. Hey, what's a baby's favorite reptile? It's a rattlesnake. Pausing so you have time to laugh. Hey, what does a snowman eat for breakfast? Frosted Flakes. Where do generals keep their armies? In their sleeveys. Generals keep their armies in their sleeveys. Hey, how do you make a hot dog stand? Take away its chair. What kind of balls don't bounce? And I swear to God, this is in here. Eyeballs. I did not know that when I bought this book. Now I'm a little freaked out. Whew. Funny stuff. I'm sorry to really just tickle your funny bone like that. It probably, you're all laughed out. I'm going to send you on over to Zat's stream, as is my custom at this time of night. For he is usually the only one I can raid. This has been fun. I will see you tomorrow with another one of my classic Thought Slime video things. That one of the videos that I make. You know the ones. You love those guys. Those little videos of mine. You're always watching those.